Chapter 11:10. Just as Xiao Chen had been worried about, the cultivator from the Night Ghost Pavilion was indeed present. He sat on the main seat and looked at the leader of the Ghost King clan as he spoke. "How is it? Have the people from the Sacred Palace still not shown up?" "My lord, the people from the Sacred Palace still haven't shown up. I'm wondering if the Sacred Palace will give up on this supreme-grade spirit vein," the sect master said respectfully. Hearing the sect master's words, the saint from the Night Ghost Pavilion smiled. "Don't worry, the Sacred Palace won't give up. Just follow the plan and attack every day, but don't attack the spirit vein. You just need to put enough pressure on the Bai-Mo sacred sect." The sect master of the Ghost King sect didn't dare to say anything. He respectfully accepted the order and left the main hall. The Night Ghost Pavilion's plan was similar to what Xiao Chen had guessed. They wanted to surround and kill all the reinforcements from the Sacred Palace, and the sect master of the Ghost King sect knew this very well. However, the sect master of the Ghost King sect was still a little worried because this plan was too dangerous. After all, the Sacred Palace wasn't stupid. If the Sacred Palace sensed any clues, the Sacred Palace would very likely launch a counterattack. When that happened, the experts from the Ghost King sect and the Night Ghost Pavilion would have nowhere to run to in the human territory of the Bai-Mo continent. After all, the Sacred Palace definitely had the advantage over the Night Ghost Pavilion. This was because the Bai-Mo continent was the Sacred Palace's territory. The reinforcements from the Sacred Palace would obviously be faster than the Night Ghost Pavilion. He was very worried. This was like walking on a tightrope. The slightest mistake would lead to a tragic death. Unaware of the sect master's worries, the saint expert from the Night Ghost Pavilion also got up and left after he left. He then went to the backyard of the City Lord's mansion. Ever since the Ghost King sect conquered Great Peak City, the backyard of the City Lord's mansion had been turned into a forbidden area by the Night Ghost Pavilion. Apart from the people of the Night Ghost Pavilion, no one else was allowed to enter, including the sect master of the Ghost King sect. Therefore, the sect master of the Ghost King sect knew nothing about what was going on in the backyard. They walked all the way to the backyard. At this moment, they could see numerous talisman masters of the Night Ghost Pavilion busily working. Moreover, there were many experts of the Night Ghost Pavilion standing guard in the surroundings, including 2 saints. The Night Ghost Pavilion had actually arranged for 3 saints to be stationed on the Bai-Mo continent. Following the arrival of this saint, the other 2 saints also walked over. Looking at the 2, the saint asked, "How is it? When will it be completed?" "I estimate that the reinforcements from the Sacred Palace will be arriving soon." Hearing this saint's words, another saint from the Night Ghost Pavilion laughed and said, "Don't worry, we'll be done in 5 days at most." "Good, that's good. At that time, not only will we have the absolute initiative, we can also retreat calmly if anything happens," the saint said with a smile. Listening to their conversation, if Xiao Chen was present, he would have been shocked to find out that the Night Ghost Pavilion had carved out a cross-realm transportation array in Vast Peak City. Furthermore, it looked like it would be completed soon. As for where the cross-realm transportation array would lead to, there was no doubt that it would lead to the Night Ghost Pavilion. The Night Ghost Pavilion's original plan to kill the reinforcements from the Sacred Palace was the geographical factor. However, with this cross-realm transportation array, it would be completely different. When the time came, the experts of the Night Ghost Pavilion would be able to continuously rush to the Bai-Mo continent through the transportation array. At that time, even if the Sacred Palace sent reinforcements, it would be difficult to stop them. It had to be said that the Night Ghost Pavilion was indeed far-sighted and ruthless. They were willing to build a trans-realm transportation formation just for the sake of killing the Holy Palace's reinforcements. They were indeed rich and overbearing. One had to know that the construction of a cross-realm transportation array was extremely expensive. Moreover, this cross-realm transportation array could only be used once because the Night Ghost Pavilion could not stay on the BMO continent forever. As long as they took down the reinforcements from the Sacred Palace, the people of the Night Ghost Pavilion would definitely retreat. At that time, the cross-realm transportation array would be destroyed. It was indeed daring. However, the Night Ghost Pavilion probably did not expect that they were not the only ones who had built a cross-realm transportation array on the BMO continent. The Sacred Palace had done the same. It could be said that the cross-realm transportation array that the Sacred Palace had built on the BMO continent was too exquisite. Without it, the Night Ghost Pavilion's scheme would have succeeded. However, it was hard to say now because both sides had cross-realm transportation arrays. As such, the outcome was unpredictable. Regardless, the cross-realm transportation array that the Night Ghost Pavilion had built did indeed pose a significant threat to the Sacred Palace. Of course, this all depended on whether the Sacred Palace could detect it immediately. If they could detect it immediately, the cross-realm transportation array that the Sacred Palace had built on Baimoshingzong would be able to stop the Night Ghost Pavilion. Both sides used their own methods to enter and exit. While the Night Ghost Pavilion was building a cross-realm transportation array, Xiao Chun and the others secretly arrived at the Supreme-grade Spirit Vein one day later. Due to the Ghost King Sect's attack, the Spirit Vein had been temporarily mined. As such, the human laborers in charge of mining had been arranged to a safe area in the rear. At this moment, only the experts from Baimoshingzong were present in the Spirit Vein. Xiao Chun and the others had secretly arrived. Only the sect master of Baimoshingzong knew about this. At this moment, in the city beside the Spirit Vein, Xiao Chen's group and the sect master of Baimoshingzong sat together in a secret room. They asked about the situation of the war. The sect master of Baimoshingzong answered truthfully. The Ghost King sect's attack was very fierce. They attacked almost every day. There were a few times when we almost could not hold on, but in the end, we did not disappoint and successfully defended the Spirit Vein. The sect master of Baimoshingzong looked very proud of being able to defend the Spirit Vein. However, Xiao Chen was still skeptical about this. There were several times when they almost couldn't hold on, but in the end they successfully held on. Was this because the 100 Mu Holy Sect was too tenacious, or did the Ghost King Sect have some kind of purpose and did it on purpose? Xiao Chen guessed in his heart, but he did not say it out loud. After all, the sect master of Baimoshingzong had led his people to another fierce battle. It was already very difficult for him. Even if he did not deserve credit, he still deserved credit. Naturally, Xiao Chen would not discourage the sect master of Baimoshingzong at this time. After a moment of silence, Xiao Chen asked the question he was most concerned about: "Have you found anyone from the Night Ghost Pavilion?" "Not at the moment. There have only been people from the Ghost King sect." "I think this might be the Ghost King sect's own operation," the sect master of Baimoshingzong replied. "Begging for your collection, begging for monthly votes, begging for recommendations." End of chapter. Chapter 1111. Was it just the Ghost King sect's own actions? Xiao Chen fell silent when he heard sect master Baimoshingzong's words. There was no indication that the Ghost King sect's actions were directed by the Night Ghost Pavilion, nor was there any evidence that the experts of the Night Ghost Pavilion were on the BMO continent. However, Xiao Chen's intuition told him that this matter was definitely not simple. It was impossible for a mere Ghost King sect to have the guts to enter deep into the territory of the Holy Palace alone. Moreover, they dared to openly engage in a fierce battle with the 100 Waves Holy Clan. The Ghost King sect's actions seemed to be telling Xiao Chen that they were here, waiting for the Sacred Palace's reinforcements to arrive. That was the impression that the Ghost King sect's actions gave off. They seemed to be waiting for the Sacred Palace's reinforcements to arrive. But where did the little Ghost King sect's confidence come from? It should be known that if the Sacred Palace wanted to destroy the Ghost King sect, it would be a simple matter. Not to mention the Sacred Palace, even other stronger sacred sects would not find it difficult to destroy the Ghost King sect. This was because the Ghost King sect only had one saint in the entire sect. This kind of strength was at the bottom of the sacred sect. There must be a reason for this abnormality. Therefore, Shao Chen did not relax in the slightest because of sect master Baimo Xingzong's words. On the contrary, he appeared to be even more solemn. Shao Chen did not speak, and neither did sect master Baimo Xingzong. After everyone was silent for a while, Shao Chen finally spoke. Don't expose our existence. You can fight however you want for the next few days. We won't show ourselves for the time being. They did not intend to show themselves for the time being. Everything would remain the same, and the Ghost King sect and Baimo Xingzong would continue to fight fiercely. Of course, this was only temporary. Shao Chen needed some time to prepare. Upon hearing Shao Chen's words, although sect master Baimo Xingzong did not know Shao Chen's purpose, he still nodded respectfully. They hid in the spirit vein. Other than sect master Baimo Xingzong, no one knew of the existence of Shao Chen and the others. Although everyone did not understand why Shao Chen was hiding, they did not ask. Even Tian Yu was patient and waited for Shao Chen's further instructions. Outside, Baimo Xingzong and Ghost King sect were still fighting fiercely every day. Ghost King sect also attacked came every day, as if they would not stop until the end. However, Shao Chen did not care about this. 3 days passed in the blink of an eye. Shao Chen was most concerned about the cross-boundary teleportation array in Baimo Xingzong. Almost every day, Shao Chen would personally ask if the cross-boundary teleportation array had been completed. In this way, they hid in the Spirit Vein City for 5 days. On the 6th day, Baimo Xingzong finally sent back news that the cross-boundary teleportation array had been completed. After hearing this news, Shao Chen's face finally lit up with joy. Qin Shuru and the others were confused. They did not care about the war at the front, but now that he heard that the cross-boundary teleportation array had been completed, Shao Chen was so excited. What was he up to? They did not know too much. After learning that the cross-boundary teleportation array had been completed, Shao Chen sent a message back to the Sacred Palace. Everyone thought that Shao Chen was contacting Shao Xing, but they did not know that Shao Chen had contacted the 7th chosen of the Sacred Palace, Quan Lan. In the Sacred Palace, Quan Lan was in charge of the Mulan Sacred Hall. When she received Shao Chen's message, it was difficult at first, but she did not think too much about it. After explaining the matter to Shao Xing and obtaining Shao Xing's approval, Quan Lan immediately rushed to the 100 Mo continent according to Shao Chen's instructions. Shao Chen's message to Quan Lan was very simple. I need 5 talisman array masters. Among the 10 sacred palace chosen, Quan Lan was the most special one because she was the only talisman master among them. No, she should be called a talisman array master now. After Shao Chen obtained the Sky Expanse Sect's inheritance, Quan Lan was naturally allowed to cultivate as a talisman array master. In the past few years, Quan Lan had been in closed-door cultivation, and her talisman array Dao cultivation had also soared with the help of the Sky Expanse Sect's inheritance. Moreover, with the support of the Sky Expanse Sect's inheritance and the orders of Shao Xing and the other 4 patriarchs, the Mulan Sacred Hall under Quan Lan's control had now become the Talisman Master Hall of the 10 Sacred Halls. Now, one had to be a Talisman Master to join the Mulan Sacred Hall, so the Mulan Sacred Hall had become the Talisman Master Hall of the Sacred Palace. All Talisman Masters and Talisman Array Masters belonged to the Mulan Sacred Hall. Quan Lan personally led a group of people to the Bai Mo continent. Due to the existence of the cross-boundary teleportation array, it was very convenient to travel from the Sacred Palace to the Bai Mo continent. Therefore, Quan Lan personally led 5 talisman array masters of the Mulan Sacred Hall to the Spirit Vein City after only a day. According to Xiao Chen's instructions, Quan Lan and the others' arrival was naturally kept a secret, and no one knew about it. After meeting with Xiao Chen, Quan Lan cupped her hands together and bowed. Senior Brother Xiao. Due to the establishment of the Sacred Palace, the previous relationship was no longer used. As the first chosen of the Sacred Palace, Xiao Chen was naturally Quan Lan's senior brother in terms of seniority. Xiao Chen smiled and said, "Junior sister Quan, I'll have to trouble you this time." "Senior brother, what are you saying? We're all fellow disciples of the same sect. How can I dare to disobey senior brother's orders?" Quan Lan immediately said in a displeased tone when she heard Xiao Chen's polite words. Seeing this, Xiao Chen laughed heartily and told Quan Lan about his plan. Xiao Chen had summoned Quan Lan to the Biamo continent because Xiao Chen wanted to construct a talisman array in the Spirit Vein City. There was only one requirement for the talisman array, and that was that it had to be tough enough to withstand the attacks of several saints for several days at the very least. Quan Lan definitely wouldn't have been able to construct a talisman array that could withstand the attacks of several saints for several days in the past, but now that she had obtained the inheritance of the Heaven Expanse sect, Quan Lan's cultivation in talisman arrays was no longer the same as before. As long as she was given enough time, she would be able to set it up. Therefore, Quan Lan did not hesitate when she heard Xiao Chen's words and seriously said, "I need at least 5 days." Xiao Chen nodded and said, "That's not a problem, but the process of inscribing the talisman array must be kept a secret. No one else can know about it." Everything had to be done in secret. Quan Lan nodded. Although she did not know what Xiao Chen wanted to do, Quan Lan trusted Xiao Chen very much. She did not doubt Xiao Chen's orders at all. After discussing the details of inscribing the talisman array with Quan Lan, Xiao Chen told Quan Lan to start inscribing the talisman array immediately. Xiao Chen looked at Quan Lan and said seriously, "Junior sister, I'll be counting on you this time. I wanted to let you rest for a while, but time is of the essence. Senior brother, don't worry. I definitely won't let you down. Just wait for my good news." Quan Lan smiled and replied. After that, she left with the 5 talisman array masters from the Tulan Sacred Hall. Begging for your collection, begging for monthly votes, begging for recommendations. End of chapter. Chapter 11-12. Xiao Chen did not doubt Quan Lan's talisman array cultivation. Since she was able to become one of the 10 chosen of the Sacred Palace as a talisman array master, Quan Lan's aptitude was obviously not ordinary. In addition, with the help of the Sky Expanse sect's inheritance over the past few years, Xiao Chen believed that as long as Quan Lan was given enough time, she would definitely be able to construct a talisman array that could withstand a saint's attack. Talisman array masters were terrifying. In terms of the ability to kill enemies above their level, they were definitely ranked first. Of course, talisman formation masters had their own shortcomings as well, and that was that they were extremely weak when facing their enemies. If one wanted to allow a talisman formation master to truly bring forth his ability, then one had to give him sufficient time, and this was the shortcoming of a talisman formation master. Regardless, Quan Lan's arrival allowed Xiao Chen to secretly breathe a sigh of relief. In the next few days, Xiao Chen and the others still did not appear. Quan Lan and the others secretly constructed a huge talisman array in the Spirit Vein City with the help of Sect Master Baimo Xingzong. To be honest, Sect Master Baimo Xingzong had been very nervous these few days. It was not because of the Ghost King sect's attack, but because he had to face 2 Sacred Palace chosen at the same time. Xiao Chen alone had already given Sect Master Baimo Xingzong a lot of pressure, but now there was also Quan Lan. Moreover, Sect Master Baimo Xingzong had to accompany Quan Lan almost all the time because of Xiao Chen's orders. This made him extremely nervous. Of course, Shao Chun and Quan Lan clearly did not care about sect master Baimo Xingzong's thought. Although he was a saint stage expert, his status was nothing in Shao Chun and Quan Lan's eyes. Just like that, 5 days quietly passed without any changes. During these 5 days, the Ghost King sect's attack did not stop. However, after 5 days of fierce attacks, the 3 saints of the Night Ghost Pavilion gathered in the backyard of the City Lord's mansion in Vast Peak City. They sneered as they looked at the transboundary transportation array in front of them. It's done. Now we can only rely on the Sacred Palace to take the bait. I wonder if there will be any big fish this time. Haha, don't worry. No matter how bad they are, we will definitely kill a few saints. Of course, it would be even better if the 10 chosen and saintesses of the Sacred Palace came. The 3 saints from the Night Ghost Pavilion felt a lot more confident now that they had the teleportation formation. While the 3 of them were secretly rejoicing, Quan Lan did not disappoint. She had successfully drawn the defensive charm array that Shao Chun had requested in the past 5 days in the Spirit Vein City. This defensive talisman array was called the Dragon Tortoise Holy Array. It was a top-grade saint-grade talisman array recorded in the Celestial Expanse sect's inheritance. According to Quan Lan, this array could withstand the attacks of several saints for 3 days. Hearing this, Shao Chun was very satisfied with the power of the Dragon Tortoise Holy Array. 3 days was enough. In the secret chamber, Shao Chun, Quan Lan, Qin Shuru, and Tian Yu sat together. Shao Chun smiled and said, "It's time to show up. Let's see what other tricks the Ghost King sect has up their sleeve." They had stayed in the Spirit Vein City for 5 days. Now that the talisman array was completed, Shao Chun felt that it was time to show up. Hearing Shao Chun's words, no one present objected. The next day, the Ghost King sect's attack came as expected. Another great battle broke out outside the Spirit Vein City. The fierce battle had lasted for a period of time. Both the Ghost King sect and Baimo Xingzong had suffered heavy casualties. However, on this day, the situation outside the Spirit Vein City changed. Just as the Ghost King sect launched their attack and the 2 sides fought fiercely, Shao Chun and the others appeared on the city wall of the Spirit Vein City. Looking at the battlefield in front of them, Shao Chun's eyes flashed with a cold light as he said faintly, "No matter what the Ghost King sect's plan is, let's kill more of their people today and try to make them all stay." The appearance of Shao Chun and the others was absolutely unexpected for the Ghost King sect. Therefore, Shao Chun also intended to catch the Ghost King sect off guard and try to make all of their warriors stay. As soon as he finished speaking, everyone immediately attacked. They spread out and attacked the Ghost King sect. The sudden appearance of Shao Chun and the others, coupled with their extremely powerful combat strength, quickly forced the Ghost King sect to retreat. However, Shao Chun did not intend to let them go so easily. He directly asked Baimo Xingzong to order people to block the retreat of the Ghost King sect. With nowhere to retreat and the need to face Shao Chun and the others, the Ghost King sect quickly lost their will to fight. At the same time that Shao Chun and the others appeared, the 3 Night Ghost Pavilion saints in Vast Peak City quickly received news that the people from the Sacred Palace had appeared. In the main hall of the City Lord's mansion in Vast Peak City, the 3 Night Ghost Pavilion saints sat on the main seats. Below them was a half-saint deacon of the Night Ghost Pavilion. The half-saint deacon respectfully recounted the battle outside the Spirit Vein City to the 3 of them. Hearing this, one of the Night Ghost Pavilion saints asked with joy, "Did anyone recognize who led the Sacred Palace team? Who has come to support them?" "Sir, there are 2 saints from the Sacred Palace. Other than them, there is the first chosen, Shao Chun, the 7th saintess, Quan Lan, and the first saintess of 9th heaven, Tian Yu. There are also Shao Chun's 3 wives, Qin Shuru, Fairy of 100 Flowers, and Gu Lingyao. They had been waiting for the reinforcements from the Holy Palace to arrive, so there had been people from the Night Ghost's Pavilion keeping watch outside the Spirit Vein City at all times. Today, when Xiao Chen and the others appeared, the spies from the Night Ghost's pavilion had already recognized them. The 3 Night Ghost Pavilion saints could not remain calm after hearing the deacon's reply. The one who spoke earlier could not help but slap the table and stand up excitedly. Great, I didn't expect to catch such a big fish. 2 first chosen and a saintess. This is a great harvest. What do you 2 think? As he spoke, the saint from the Night Ghost Pavilion looked at the 2 people beside him. Seeing this, the 2 of them nodded their heads slightly. With such a great harvest, we naturally can't let them escape. Yes, no doubt about it. Even if we have to pay a price, we must kill Xiao Chen, Tianyu, and the others here. Even the Sacred Palace and 9th Heaven can't do nothing if they lose the first chosen and the first saintess. The 3 of them quickly came to an agreement. Then, the Night Ghost Pavilion saint who had stood up ordered. Send a message back to the Night Ghost Pavilion. The big fish has taken the bait. Tell them to immediately rush to the Mo continent. Also, tell the Ghost King sect master that the experts from the Night Ghost Pavilion will arrive in 2 hours at most. Tell him to delay Xiao Chen and the others. With the inter-realm transportation formation, the experts from the Night Ghost Pavilion would only need 2 hours to arrive. This was the source of the Night Ghost Pavilion's confidence. It was also the source of their confidence that they dared to kill Xiao Chen and the others. Begging for your collection, begging for monthly votes, begging for recommendations. End of chapter. Chapter 11-13. Who would have thought that this plan would attract 3 holy sons and holy daughters? Among them, Xiao Chen and Tianyu were the first holy son and holy daughter. As the 3 holy sons and holy daughters of the Night Ghost Pavilion had said, even if they had to pay a price, as long as they could kill Xiao Chen and the other 2, it would be worth it. They had originally thought that they would only be able to kill a few Sacred Palace saints at most, but who would have thought that they would reap such a great reward? The news quickly spread back to the Night Ghost Pavilion. At the same time, the Ghost King sect received orders from the Night Ghost Pavilion to delay Xiao Chen and the others at all costs. The Ghost King sect's sect master stood at the front line of the fierce battle. He could not hold on at all. Right now, he was facing sect master Baimo Xingzong and a Sacred Palace saint Venerate. Facing 2 saints alone, the Ghost King sect's sect master was under a lot of pressure. It was no exaggeration to say that if the battle continued, the Ghost King sect's sect master would probably die here. He had already thought of retreating, but the Night Ghost Pavilion had ordered him to delay Xiao Chen and the others and not give them a chance to escape. For a moment, the Ghost King sect's sect master was stuck between a rock and a hard place. If the battle continued, he would probably die here. Moreover, with the addition of Xiao Chen and the others, the Ghost King sect's cultivators had already suffered heavy casualties. However, if he chose to retreat, the Night Ghost Pavilion would definitely not let him off. In fact, the Ghost King sect might even be destroyed. The Ghost King sect's sect master was well aware of the Night Ghost Pavilion's method. Therefore, after much hesitation, he decided to fight to the bitter end and persevere until the Night Ghost Pavilion's experts arrived. Forcefully extinguishing the thought of retreating in his heart, the Ghost King sect's sect master's aura soared again, as if he was facing death with equanimity. The scene was already extremely chaotic. Killing could be seen everywhere, and the area outside the Spirit Vein City was already littered with corpses. As he killed the Ghost King sect's cultivators, Xiao Chen observed the situation on the battlefield. He did not lose his cool because Xiao Chen knew very well that the Ghost King sect was probably just a cover. Xiao Chen's ultimate goal today was to lure out the big fish behind the Ghost King sect. The Night Ghost Pavilion was fishing, and so was Xiao Chen. The 2 sides were locked in a fierce battle. Although Xiao Chen's strength was enough to crush the Ghost King sect, there were too many Ghost King sect martial artists, and it was difficult to finish them off in a short time. While Xiao Chen and the others were engaged in a bloody battle, the Night Ghost Pavilion, had received the news from the Mo continent. The Night Ghost Pavilion immediately took action. At the same time, the first holy son of the Night Ghost Pavilion, Xie, and 2 other holy sons of the Night Ghost Pavilion also appeared in the group. When he heard that Xiao Chen had appeared on the Mo continent and was surrounded, Xie chose to rush to the Mo continent without hesitation. Ever since he had fought with Xiao Chen in the Celestial Expanse sect's secret territory, Xie had sworn that he would kill Xiao Chen with his own hands. Today the opportunity had finally arrived. Furthermore, Xie did not think that this trip would be dangerous. After all, with the existence of the cross-realm teleportation formation, the Night Ghost Pavilion could advance or retreat as they pleased. The group was quickly assembled, and the experts of the Night Ghost Pavilion quickly arrived at the Mo continent's Great Peak City through the cross-realm teleportation formation. Xie led the group. After the group arrived, Xie did not waste any time and directly looked at the 3 saints who had been guarding the Mo continent. "How is it? What's the situation now?" "Holy Son, the 2 sides are still fighting fiercely." "Good, let's set off immediately. Today we must capture Xiao Chen and the others in one fell swoop." Xie roared with overflowing killing intent. For an entire 2 hours, the Ghost King sect had fearlessly stalled Xiao Chen and the others. However, the Ghost King sect had also paid a heavy price for this. At the very least, more than 70% of the people who had attacked this time had been killed by Xiao Chen and the others. At this point, there were only a few people left on the Ghost King sect's side who were still resisting. Even the sect master of the Ghost King sect had been killed by sect master Baimo Xingzong and a saint sovereign from the sacred palace. The sect master of the Ghost King sect did not choose to retreat until he died. The outcome seemed certain. The Ghost King sect had lost, and it was a crushing defeat. However, Xiao Chen did not relax in the slightest. Seeing that there were still some Ghost King sect cultivators struggling to resist, Xiao Chen looked in the direction of Vast Peak City with a solemn expression. Under Xiao Chen's gaze, Xiao Chen vaguely sensed a terrifying aura constantly approaching. Perhaps it was because of the distance, but Xiao Chen could not sense the terrifying aura too clearly. However, this did not hinder him. Sensing the aura's approach, Xiao Chen sneered. "Is that so?" As he spoke, Xiao Chen coldly shouted to everyone present, "Everyone, return to the city." The battle was not over yet, but Xiao Chen had given the order to retreat. Although many people did not know what Xiao Chen meant, no one dared to refute Xiao Chen. Soon, everyone returned to the city. In less than 100 breaths, the 2 sides stopped fighting and Xiao Chen's group successfully returned to the Spirit Vein City. Xiao Chen stood in the middle of the city walls, accompanied by Tianyu, Qin Shuru, Quan Lan and the others. He looked into the distance. Under Xiao Chen's gaze, Xie soon arrived with a group of Night Ghost Pavilion experts. Baimo Xingzong's disciples and elders could not help but gasp when they saw Xie's group. A total of 23 saints, 3 chosens, and hundreds of Dao emperors and Dao kings. No one had expected the Night Ghost Pavilion to have so many experts lying in ambush on the Mo continent. Everyone understood when they saw this scene. The Ghost King sect was bait used to lure the Night Ghost Pavilion. The Ghost King sect had attacked the Spirit Vein City all this time to lure the Sacred Palace's reinforcements. Then, the Night Ghost Pavilion would take the opportunity to devour the Sacred Palace's reinforcements. Without knowing the situation, it was indeed impossible for the Sacred Palace to send too many experts to rescue the 100 Mo continent because of a mere Ghost King sect. Fortunately, Xiao Chen was vigilant and prepared. If it was anyone else, the Night Ghost Pavilion would have succeeded. After all, the Night Ghost Pavilion was already at the city gates. Even if the Sacred Palace had a transboundary teleportation formation in Baimo Xingzong, it was too late. Xiao Chen did not panic as expected. Facing Mo Xie and the group of Night Ghost Pavilion experts, Xiao Chen's expression was calm. On the other hand, Mo Xie sneered. Xiao Chen, you didn't expect this day to come, did you? I knew it. But Mo Xie, don't you think it's a little too early to be happy? Begging for a monthly vote, begging for a recommendation. End of chapter. Chapter 11-14. Xiao Chen's expression didn't change at all as he faced Mo Xie and the other experts from the Night Ghost Pavilion. Xiao Chen gave Quan Lan a look, indicating for her to activate the talisman array. She understood what Xiao Chen meant. At the same time, Mo Xie sneered and said, Xiao Chen, you're still so stubborn even in the face of death. Attack. Without wasting any time, Mo Xie gave the order to attack. However, as soon as he gave the order, a huge talisman array shot up into the sky around the Spirit Vein City. The talisman array took the shape of a dragon turtle and covered the entire Spirit Vein City. As soon as the talisman array appeared, the smile on Mo Xie's face disappeared. He didn't expect Xiao Chen to have such a trick up his sleeve. However, Mo Xie quickly recovered. There were 23 saints from the Night Ghost Pavilion now. Even if they had a turtle shell, what could they do? As long as they broke the turtle shell, Xiao Chen and the others would still die. Mo Xie smiled again and said coldly, Xiao Chen, do you think you can save your life with this turtle shell? You're too naive. Break it for me. Hearing Mo Xie's words, the other experts from the Night Ghost Pavilion moved. Terrifying attacks bombarded the array. However, the Dragon Turtle Sacred Array that Quan Lan had drawn didn't even budge in the face of such terrifying attacks. Seeing that the Dragon Turtle Sacred Array actually had such a defensive ability, the people of the 100-Wave Sacred Sect, whose expressions had changed greatly, breathed a sigh of relief. However, compared to them, Quan Lan's expression was not very good. These people didn't know anything about talisman arrays, but Quan Lan knew that the number of experts from the Night Ghost Pavilion was greater than expected. As such, the Dragon Turtle Sacred Array wouldn't last 3 days. Quan Lan couldn't be blamed. Who would have thought that the Night Ghost Pavilion would send so many saints, half-saints, and Dao Emperors at once? Such a force was beyond everyone's imagination. Standing beside Xiao Chen, Quan Lan told Xiao Chen her worries. Hearing Quan Lan's words, Xiao Chen's expression didn't change. How long can it last? 1.5 days at most, Quan Lan said in a low voice. 1.5 days was indeed the limit. In response, Xiao Chen let out a breath of turbid air and said indifferently, That's enough. Xiao Chen had asked Quan Lan to draw this defensive array in order to deal with the Night Ghost's Pavilion's ambush. Now, it seemed that he had made the right decision. If not for the Dragon Turtle Holy Array, they would have been in grave danger. Even though the current situation was somewhat different from what he had expected, a day and a half was more than enough time for the Sacred Palace experts to arrive. As long as he could hold out until then, the Sacred Palace would be able to turn the tables and kill the Night Ghost Pavilion members. Of course, it would be perfect if they could kill Mo Xie as well. Xiao Chen glanced at Mo Xie, whose face was incomparably pale, and sneered, Mo Xie, take your people and slowly fight here. When you break my tortoise shell, you and I will fight again. Without waiting for Mo Xie's reply, Xiao Chen walked down the city walls. Mo Xie gritted his teeth as he watched Xiao Chen leave. Xiao Chen, I'll skin you alive if you break this tortoise shell. Mo Xie hated the tortoise shell, but Xiao Chen didn't care. After walking down the city walls, Xiao Chen immediately sent a message back to the Sacred Palace. He told Xiao Xing to immediately send the Sacred Palace experts to the Mo continent to kill Mo Xie and the Night Ghost Pavilion members in one fell swoop. In the Sacred Palace, Xiao Xing smiled helplessly when he received Xiao Chen's message. This kid is really bold. He clearly guessed that the Night Ghost Pavilion was hiding something, but he still dared to use himself as bait. He's really not afraid of death. Xiao Xing immediately guessed Xiao Chen's goal. Xiao Qin was using himself as bait to lure the Night Ghost Pavilion. It was a good plan, but it was also very dangerous. Xiao Qin and the others were like turtles in a jar. If the Sacred Palace's reinforcements didn't arrive in time and the Dragon Tortoise Holy Array was broken, Xiao Qin and the others would die without a doubt. Of course, if everything went according to Xiao Qin's plan, the Sacred Palace could use this opportunity to deal a blow to the Night Ghost Pavilion. Xiao Xing understood Xiao Qin's plan and naturally didn't delay. In addition, Xiao Qin decided to have Randang personally lead the team to the Mo continent in order to have more chances to kill Mo Xie and the others. Xiao Xing was indeed determined to kill this group of people from the Night Ghost Pavilion by sending out a quasi-saint. After all, there were dozens of saints and 3 holy sons. It was rare that Xiao Qin had created such a good opportunity. If he could successfully kill all these people on the Mo continent, it would definitely be a huge loss for the Night Ghost Pavilion. Xiao Xing directly sent a message to Randang. Then, he gathered 30 real saints, Chun Yu's ethereal temple, and all the elite disciples of the Qing Emperor's shrines. Thousands of people were ready, and on the same day, they rushed to Baimo Xingzong through the cross-realm transportation formation. Xiao Xing moved quickly. Within Baimo Xingzong, with the arrival of the Sacred Palace's powerful reinforcements, all the disciples of Baimo Xingzong felt great pressure. None of them dared to breathe too loudly, especially the elders and deacons in charge of receiving Baimo Xingzong. They felt suffocated in front of the experts of the Sacred Palace. 30 saints, 2 holy sons, and thousands of half-saints, Dao emperors and Dao kings. This was the strength of the Sacred Palace, enough to make a saint sect like Baimo Xingzong feel despair. They didn't stop at Baimo Xingzong. After passing through the cross-realm transportation formation, Chen Yu and the Qing Emperor immediately led the group to the Spirit Vein City. Chen Yu and the Qing Emperor knew very well that Xiao Chen's life was hanging by a thread. If they had arrived even a quarter of an hour later, Xiao Chen and the others might have died. Therefore, they had to rush to the Spirit Vein City as soon as possible. While Chen Yu and the others were rushing over, a day and a night had passed. On the city wall of the Spirit Vein City, Quan Lan said with a grave expression as she looked at the Dragon Turtle Sacred Array that was on the verge of collapse. "Senior brother, the array will be broken in 2 hours at most." Compared to Quan Lan's grave expression, Mo Xie was secretly excited. They had been attacking for more than a day without sleep and rest, and now the tortoise shell was finally about to be broken. "Xiao Qin, your death is coming," Mo Xie said coldly as he looked at Xiao Qin. There were still 2 hours left. However, as soon as Mo Xie's voice fell, a terrifying aura suddenly approached from another direction. Sensing the appearance of these auras, the grave expression in Xiao Chen's eyes quickly disappeared and was replaced by a faint smile. "Begging for collection, begging for monthly votes, begging for recommendations." End of chapter. Chapter 11-15. Xiao Qin could sense many powerful auras approaching. There was no doubt that these were the Sacred Palace's reinforcements. Xiao Qin relaxed for a moment, no longer feeling nervous. Looks like they made it in time. As soon as Xiao Qin sensed the Sacred Palace's auras rapidly approaching, Mo Xie naturally sensed them as well. Mo Xie's expression darkened as he gritted his teeth. Sacred Palace's reinforcements? How did they get here so quickly? Did the Sacred Palace also construct a transboundary teleportation formation on the Mo continent? According to Mo Xie's previous calculations, even if Xiao Qin sent a message back to the Sacred Palace, it would take at least half a month for them to arrive on the Mo continent. Half a month. By the time the Sacred Palace's reinforcements arrived, it would already be too late. He originally thought that there would be enough time to deal with Xiao Qin and the others, but who would have thought that the Sacred Palace's reinforcements would arrive in just a little over a day? There was only one possibility. The Sacred Palace also had a transboundary teleportation formation on the Mo continent. When he thought of this, Emo Xie suddenly realized a very terrifying problem. Had Xiao Qin and the others really fallen for the Night Ghost Pavilion's trap and been trapped here? He subconsciously looked towards Xiao Qin, only to see a relieved smile on Xiao Qin's face. Seeing this, Emo Xie was immediately certain that this was all part of Xiao Qin's plan. Damn it, this guy already guessed that the Night Ghost Pavilion would surround and kill them again, so he purposely lured us here so that the Sacred Palace would surround and kill us instead. There was no doubt that the Sacred Palace's reinforcements this time were definitely strong enough to easily suppress the Night Ghost Pavilion, because Xiao Qin was well aware of how many forces the Night Ghost Pavilion had deployed on the Biemo continent. As such, the Sacred Palace could definitely deal with the right situation. When he thought of how Xiao Qin planned to surround and kill all of them on the Biemo continent, Emo Xie felt cold sweat trickle down his back. What a big appetite! There was no way he would fight the Sacred Palace's reinforcements head-on. After a brief moment of astonishment, Emo Xie quickly regained his senses and shouted to the surrounding Night Ghost Pavilion experts. "Quick, let's go. We've been tricked." Xiao Qin's plan to beat Emo Xie at his own game was indeed ingenious. Emo Xie had not expected this at all. At this time, Emo Xie decisively gave the order to retreat. The cultivators of the Night Ghost Pavilion did not hesitate because they could also feel the terrifying auras rapidly approaching. As soon as Emo Xie finished speaking, the members of the Night Ghost Pavilion prepared to retreat. Inside the Spirit Vein City, Xiao Qin frowned. He had not expected Emo Xie to be so decisive and choose to retreat without any hesitation. Emo Xie was a cautious person, so it wasn't strange for him to make such a decision. But now, how could Xiao Qin just watch Emo Xie leave like this? If he let Emo Xie leave like this, then all his previous efforts would be in vain. Thinking of this, Xiao Qin said to Quan Lan without hesitation, "Junior sister, close the array formation. Let's go out and hold them back." Close the array? Take the initiative to attack? Hearing Xiao Qin's words, Quan Lan was stunned. Although the Sacred Palace's reinforcements had arrived, they were still some distance away. If they took the initiative to attack now, the disparity in strength between the two sides was too great. It was very likely that there would be many casualties. Xiao Qin naturally understood this principle, but there was no other way. The reinforcements led by Randang had not arrived yet. If they did not take the initiative to attack, Emo Xie and the others might escape. They were only one step away. It would be a pity if they let Emo Xie and the others escape. They could not let all their previous efforts go to waste. Therefore, although he knew that taking the initiative to attack would result in heavy losses, Xiao Qin still said to Quan Lan without hesitation, "Junior sister, close the array formation. We have to hold them back. We can't let them leave like this." Seeing Xiao Qin's determination, Quan Lan did not say anything else and immediately closed the array formation. At the same time, Xiao Qin shouted to everyone present, including the people from the Biemo continent. "Everyone, the reinforcements from the Sacred Palace have arrived. They will be able to kill the people from the Night Ghost Pavilion in a matter of moments. Now that the Night Ghost Pavilion wants to escape, we only need to delay them for a moment. Everyone, charge forward and hold the Night Ghost Pavilion down." There were about 2,000 cultivators in the Spirit Vein City. Among them, there were 3 saints and 5 half-saints. As for the other cultivators below them, the number was different. Such a force naturally did not have any advantage against the Night Ghost Pavilion. It would not be an exaggeration to say that they would be defeated in one blow. However, Xiao Qin's goal was not to fight to the death with the Night Ghost Pavilion, but to hold them back until the Sacred Palace's reinforcements arrived. Following Xiao Qin's shout, Xiao Qin took the lead and rushed out. Seeing this, Quan Lan, Tianyu, and Qin Shuru followed closely behind. Emo Xie wanted to escape, but Xiao Qin led the people from the Spirit Vein City and rushed out. As they rushed towards Emo Xie, Xiao Qin shouted, "Emo Xie, what's wrong? Are you going to run away so pathetically? The first holy son of the Night Ghost Pavilion is in such a sorry state. Don't you think it's embarrassing? Xiao Chen deliberately provoked Mo Xie with his words. If it were any other holy son, they would have already turned around and fought. After all, the first holy sons of the North Star Field were all extremely arrogant. However, Xiao Chen was facing Mo Xie. This was a guy who would do anything to achieve his goals. Therefore, Mo Xie was unmoved by Xiao Chen's provocation. Although his expression was dark, Mo Xie had no intention of turning around. At the same time, he said to the people beside him, "Some of you go and stop them. The rest of you retreat to the Night Ghost Pavilion." Mo Xie ignored Xiao Chen. At the same time, he was prepared to leave a group of people behind to cover the retreat. Everyone knew what he meant by covering the retreat. It was tantamount to suicide, but there was no other way. In the current situation, Mo Xie could only choose to sacrifice a small number of people to ensure the safety of the majority. 2 saints of the Night Ghost Pavilion, 5 half-saints, and more than 10 Dao Emperors and Dao Kings left the group. They were willing to stay behind to cover the retreat. These people were definitely going to die. Once the reinforcements from the Sacred Palace arrived, they would definitely die. However, Mo Xie had no other choice. He could only do this. On the other hand, Xiao Chen, who was chasing after them, panicked when he saw that Mo Xie was willing to give up the lives of these people to cover the retreat. He shouted again, "Mo Xie, you coward! Don't you dare to fight fair and square?" "Humph, Xiao Chen, I'll remember what happened today. I'll definitely repay you double in the future." Not only did Mo Xie have no intention of stopping, he even sped up. Soon, he led the Night Ghost Pavilion experts and fled towards Great Peak City. At the same time, Xiao Chen's group encountered the Night Ghost Pavilion experts who were responsible for covering the retreat. Both sides immediately engaged in a fierce battle. Begging for your collection, begging for monthly votes, begging for recommendations. End of chapter. Chapter 11-16. The group led by Xiao Chen clashed fiercely with the cultivators of the Night Ghost's Pavilion that Mo Xie had left behind to cover their retreat. Because of these people, Xiao Chen could only watch as Mo Xie escape. Perhaps it was because they knew that there was no way out, but with 2 saints leading them, the cultivators of the Night Ghost Pavilion who had stayed behind to cover the retreat were all fearless. Xiao Chen knew very well what would happen to these people. From the moment they stayed behind to cover the retreat, they were already dead. However, Xiao Chen was not happy about it at all, because the most important thing was that Mo Xie had escaped. He hadn't expected Mo Xie to be so decisive. Of course, this could also be said to be because Xiao Chen had underestimated Mo Xie. As the first holy son of the Night Ghost Pavilion, Mo Xie could be said to be the best in all aspects, including his temperament. Therefore, after discovering Xiao Chen's plan, Mo Xie immediately made the right choice and minimized the losses of the Night Ghost Pavilion. Just think about it, if Mo Xie hadn't done so, or if Mo Xie had been angered by Xiao Chen's provocation, then what awaited him would have been complete annihilation. At that time, not only would Mo Xie die, but the other 2 holy sons of the Night Ghost Pavilion, the 23 saints, and the numerous half-saints and Dao Emperors would all die here. Unfortunately, Mo Xie was very calm. As a result, even though there would be casualties, the price would be much lower. At most, they would lose 2 saints, a few half-saints, and Dao Emperors and Dao Kings. Even though the loss of 2 saints was enough to make the Night Ghost Pavilion feel the pinch for a while, compared to being completely annihilated, this was the best result. He had still underestimated Mo Xie. This fellow was indeed very decisive. Seeing that he couldn't catch up to Mo Xie, Xiao Chen didn't dare to rashly lead his men into the depths of the Night Ghost Pavilion. If they were ambushed by Mo Xie along the way, then they would go for wool and come home shorn. Xiao Chun decided to get rid of the people who stayed behind to cover the retreat first. With this thought in mind, he immediately changed his strategy and decided to take down these people first. After all, 2 saints were not a small gain. Everyone fought fiercely and the battle broke out. After a short few minutes, the sacred palace reinforcements led by Randang finally arrived. Seeing that the battle had broken out, Randang did not waste any time and directly ordered everyone to attack. With the help of the sacred palace reinforcements, the experts from the Night Ghost Pavilion who had stayed behind to cover the retreat were naturally unable to resist. It didn't take long for them to be slaughtered, including the 2 saints from the Night Ghost Pavilion. After killing this group of people, Xiao Chen went to Randang and told him what had happened. Hearing this, Randang gave the order for everyone to go to Haofeng City. They wanted to kill all the people from the Night Ghost Pavilion. Without any hesitation, the Sacred Palace group headed straight for Great Summit City. At the same time, the Interrealm Transportation Array in the City Lord's Manor had already been activated, and the Night Ghost Pavilion experts immediately returned to the Night Ghost Pavilion through the Interrealm Transportation Array. Fortunately, the Interrealm Transportation Array existed. Otherwise, none of Mo Xie's group would have been able to escape. They were the last to enter the transportation array. Before entering, Mo Xie turned to look in the direction of the Spirit Vein City. His eyes were filled with unwillingness and coldness as he said coldly, "Xiao Chen, we still don't know who will win. Next time, I'll kill you with my own hand." With that, Mo Xie turned around and walked into the transportation array. After Mo Xie and the people from the Night Ghost Pavilion successfully escaped through the Interrealm Transportation Array, the Sacred Palace group arrived at Great Summit City in less than 10 minutes. Outside the city, they saw many human corpses. It was easy to imagine that these were the humans killed by the Night Ghost Pavilion and the Ghost King sect after they took down Great Summit City. Such was the situation in the North Star Realm. Those who were not of the same race were bound to have different intentions. Any race would be cruel and merciless when faced with an outsider. Therefore, massacres like what the Night Ghost Pavilion had done were not rare in the history of the North Star Realm. A trace of sorrow flashed across Xiao Chen's eyes, but he did not say anything. Under Ronding's orders, the group marched into Great Summit City. However, the strange thing was that after entering Great Summit City, the Sacred Palace group did not encounter any attacks or resistance. This puzzled everyone. Had the people from the Night Ghost Pavilion given up? Or did they not return to Great Summit City? Everyone had the same question in their hearts, but it was soon answered. In the backyard of the City Lord's Manor, Xiao Chen and the others found the Interrealm Transportation Array. Randang, Xiao Chen, Tianyu, Chen Yu, Emperor Qing, and the others stood in front of the transportation array and looked at it. Xiao Chen said indifferently, "No wonder the Night Ghost Pavilion dared to enter so boldly alone. So this is what they are relying on." Xiao Chen did not know that the Night Ghost Pavilion had built an interrealm transportation array here. If he had known, he would not have thought that he could kill Mo Xie and the others. After all, with the existence of such an interrealm transportation array, it was impossible to kill Mo Xie and the others. Xiao Chen sighed softly. In the end, Mo Xie had escaped. However, there was no point in saying anything else now. Moreover, even though Mo Xie and most of the Night Ghost Pavilion's experts had managed to escape, the Sacred Palace hadn't come out empty-handed. At the very least, they'd killed 2 saints and 5 half-saints from the Night Ghost Pavilion. As for the Dao Emperor and Dao King realm experts, there were more than 20 of them. This could be considered as some interest. They knew where the interrealm transportation array led to, and it did not seem to have been destroyed. However, Xiao Chen and the others could not directly use the interrealm transportation array to attack the Night Ghost Pavilion's headquarters. That would be suicide. After searching around vast Summit City, he discovered that the entire vast summit city had completely turned into a dead city. With the destruction of the Ghost King sect and the retreat of the Night Ghost Pavilion, there was not a single living person left in Great Summit City. Only corpses were left. Shao Qin sighed softly and went to the main hall of the city lord's estate. Dipankara sat at the head of the table, while Shao Qin and Tian Yu took the first seats on his left and right. As for the others, they sat in order. Dipankara looked around at the crowd and said indifferently, "Destroy the inter-realm transportation array. In addition, gather all the corpses in Great Summit City and bury them." Dipankara could not bear to see the massacre of Great Summit City and the deaths of countless humans, but there was nothing he could do. The only thing he could do was bury these people. Hearing Ronding's words, everyone nodded and began to deal with the aftermath. Now that the Night Ghost Pavilion had retreated, the crisis of the Bi-Mo continent had been resolved. After dealing with the aftermath, they could continue to mine the supreme grade spirit vein. Begging for your collection, begging for monthly votes, begging for recommendations. End of chapter. Chapter 11-17. Not only had Shao Qin completely destroyed the Night Ghost Pavilion scheme, he had even given the Sacred Palace a small victory. 2 saints, 5 half-saints, and more than 20 Dao emperors and Dao kings. Such a battle record could be considered pretty good. Therefore, after settling down in Great Peak City, Shao Qin quickly cast aside the pity in his mind. So be it if they escape. After all, Mo Xie had sacrificed the rook to save the king. Moreover, he had been so decisive. He directly settled down in Great Peak City, and was in no hurry to leave. In any case, the Sacred Palace and the Bi-Mo continent were now connected by a transboundary teleportation formation, so it was much more convenient for them to contact each other. Moreover, he had heard that there was indeed a lot of work to be done after this battle. First of all, there was the work of settling down in Great Peak City. The countless corpses had to be buried, so it was a lot of work. Secondly, there was the mining of the supreme grade spirit vein, which could only be carried out after the laborers returned. After staying in Great Peak City for 3 days, there was nothing that required his help during this time, so Shao Qin led Qin Shiru, Gu Lingyao, Fairy Baihua, and the 4 girls back to the Sacred Palace. Of course, the saints, Chun Yu, the Qing Emperor, and the others also came along. The Night Ghost Pavilion had been defeated, and the transboundary teleportation formation had been destroyed. As such, the Night Ghost Pavilion naturally wouldn't appear on the Bi-Mo continent for a short period of time. Therefore, there was no need for so many people to remain on the Bi-Mo continent. In the end, only 1 saint and nearly 100 Sacred Palace experts remained. The rest returned to the Sacred Palace with Shao Qin. With a saint sovereign in charge of the Bi-Mo continent and Bi-Mo Xingzong's cooperation, there naturally wouldn't be any problems. By the time Shao Qin and the others returned to the Sacred Palace, 3 days had already passed. In the Night Ghost Pavilion's Mo Xie's dwelling, 3 days had passed, and Mo Xie's expression was extremely ugly. This was already the 2nd time he had suffered in the hands of Shao Qin. The first time was in the Sky Expanse sect's secret territory. However, compared to the first time, Mo Xie found it hard to endure this time. He had been completely crushed by Shao Qin. From the beginning to the end, he had been trapped in the trap that Shao Qin had set for him. It was laughable that he, Mo Xie, had actually thought that this was a great opportunity to kill Shao Qin. Little did he know that the position of the hunter and the hunted had already swapped. Perhaps at that time, Shao Qin looked at him as if he was an idiot. It wasn't that he couldn't admit defeat, but every time he thought about how Shao Qin looked at him as if he was an idiot, Mo Xie couldn't help but feel angry. In his opinion, this was a shame, a stain that he would never be able to wash away. He thought that he was not inferior to anyone. However, this time, he, Mo Xie, was completely defeated by Shao Qin. He did not even have the strength to fight back. In the end, he could only escape in a sorry state. Damn it! In the courtyard, Emosia struck out with his palm. A beautiful rockery in front of him was directly smashed into pieces. This was the umpteenth time that Emosia had been angry. The maids around him all lowered their heads, their eyes filled with fear. They were afraid that Emosia would vent his anger on them. Fortunately, although Emosia was angry, he would not vent his anger on the maids around him. After smashing the rockery in the courtyard, Emosia took a deep breath. Then, a look of determination flashed in his eyes. He strode out of the cave and went straight to the back mountain of the Night Ghost Pavilion. He went all the way to the back mountain of the Night Ghost Pavilion. Outside the cave of the Blood Moon Great Senior, Emosia cupped his hands and said loudly, "Emosia requests to see the Great Senior." As Emosia's voice rang out, a pleasant female voice rang out from within the cave. "Come in." With the permission of the Blood Moon Great Senior, Emosia strode into the cave. Beside a small stream, Emosia saw the Blood Moon Great Senior. She was as beautiful as ever. Slowly opening her eyes, the Blood Moon Great Senior looked at Emosia with an indifferent expression. There was a hint of blame in her voice. "What? You still can't get over it? As the first holy son of the Night Ghost Pavilion, if you can't even accept such a small defeat, then you are too disappointing." The Blood Moon Great Senior had naturally heard about Emosia's state in the past 3 days. In her opinion, although the failure this time was a pity, Emosia should not take it to heart. After all, although the death of 2 saints and 5 half-saints was enough to make the Night Ghost Pavilion feel pained, it was not enough to make Emosia, the first holy son of the Night Ghost Pavilion, take it to heart. A defeat was a defeat. What did a momentary failure mean? After all, only the one who had the last laugh was the real winner. Faced with the Blood Moon Great Senior's blame, Emosia respectfully bowed and accepted it. "Great Senior, I have thought it through. I came here today to ask for your permission." "Oh? What's the matter?" Great Venerable Blood Moon asked curiously. Faced with the Blood Moon Great Senior's question, Emosia said firmly, "I want to enter the 18 Ghost Regions." The 18 Ghost Regions were one of the Night Ghost Pavilion's heritage. However, it was different from ordinary heritage. No one dared to enter the 18 Ghost Regions. This was because although there were many benefits in the 18 Ghost Regions, it was also very dangerous. To sum it up, once one entered the 18 Ghost Regions, one would either become a fish that had leaped through the Dragon's Gate or die. If one could come out of the 18 Ghost Regions alive, one would definitely obtain unimaginable benefit. Otherwise, one would die inside. However, the death rate in the 18 Ghost Regions was extremely high. In the history of the Night Ghost Pavilion, only 5 people had successfully passed through the 18 Ghost Regions or come out alive. Therefore, under normal circumstances, no one would go to the 18 Ghost Regions. Hearing Emosia's words, the Blood Moon Great Senior was stunned. However, she quickly recovered and looked at Emosia with a complicated expression. There was relief and worry in her eyes. Therefore, the Blood Moon Great Senior said, "Have you thought about the 18 Ghost Regions? You should know that once you enter, you will either live or die. There will not be a third path. I have already thought about it. Now that the 2 alliances have been established, the situation will only become more tense and the war will only become more intense. If I want to become stronger, I must enter the 18 Ghost Regions." Hearing Blood Moon's words, Emosia said firmly. At Emosia's level, if he wanted to improve greatly in a short period of time, only the 18 Ghost Regions would be able to help him. Seeing that Emosia had already made up his mind, the Blood Moon Great Senior said indifferently, "Go and prepare. In 3 days, I will personally open the 18 Ghost Regions for you." "Yes." Hearing this, Emosia nodded. After saying that, he turned around and prepared to leave. Looking at Emosia's back, the Blood Moon Great Senior did not know what to say. If he decided to enter the 18 Ghost Regions, then Emosia's only outcome would be life or death. He did not know if Emosia could pass through the 18 ghost regions. Begging for collection, begging for monthly votes, begging for recommendations. End of chapter. Chapter 11-18. Shao Chen didn't know that Emosia was preparing for the 18 ghost realms. After returning to the Holy Palace, the first thing he did was to visit his parents. After all, this trip to the 9th heaven would take several months. Bai Ruiyue and Shao Qing must be very worried. In truth, there was absolutely nothing for the two elders to worry about in the sacred palace. They had Fei Mei, Qin Yao and the others to take care of them, and they didn't lack any cultivation resources. It could be said that their lives were very blissful. Of course, under such conditions, the two elders' cultivation base naturally rose. Although their battle strength wasn't high, their lifespan had increased significantly. As a result, the two elders appeared even younger. Shao Qing was needless to say, especially his mother, Bai Ruiyue. At this moment, she was even more radiant than when she was in Lingshan Commandery City. In terms of appearance, she was not inferior to Qin Shuru and the other two girls. In addition, Bai Ruiyue's mature aura added to her beauty. After letting Qin Shuru and the other two girls accompany Tianyue around the sacred region, Shao Chen went alone to the courtyard where Bai Ruiyue and Shao Qing lived. Everyone lived in the same cave residence, so they were not far from each other. Soon, Shao Chen arrived at the courtyard. In the courtyard, Anlan and Lu Zhu, who were serving the two old men, were overjoyed when they saw Shao Chen. They happily came forward and saluted Shao Chen. Young master, since the establishment of the sacred palace, Shao Chen had many things to do because he was the first chosen, so he did not have much time to spend with Anlan and the other two girls. Now that they finally saw Shao Chen, the two girls were naturally happy. Facing the two girls, Shao Chen smiled. "It's just the two of you. Where are Fei Mei and Qin Luo?" They went to the Lingshan Prefecture city. Madame instructed them to send some things back. Upon hearing Shao Chen's words, Lu Zhu, who was the most lively of the 6 maids, replied without hiding anything. Bai Ruiyue asked Fei Mei and Qin Luo to make a trip to Lingshan city. Shao Chen didn't mind this. Accompanied by Anlan and Lu Zhu, he went all the way to the rear courtyard and saw Bai Ruiyue and Shao Qing chatting and resting in the courtyard. The two of them didn't have much to do every day. Besides cultivating, they would either go out to play or bask in the sun in the courtyard. Their lives were extremely leisurely. Shao Qing leaned comfortably on the recliner. When he saw Shao Chen coming, a smile appeared on his face as he stood up happily. "Chener is back." Shao Qing was naturally happy that Shao Chen had returned. However, there was obviously someone else who was even happier, and that was Bai Ruiyue. Hearing Shao Qing's words, Bai Ruiyue quickly rushed out of her room and cried out happily when she saw Shao Chen. "Chener, quick, come over here and let me have a look." Dressed in a simple light blue dress, Bai Ruiyue was indeed getting younger with age. She walked over to her mother's room with a smile and sized up Shao Chen from head to toe. Only then did Bai Ruiyue speak with a pained expression. "You've lost weight. Did you suffer outside? Look at you, you're always gone for a few months. When will you be able to stay in the sacred palace with peace of mind for a period of time?" At first, they were worried, but it soon turned into complaint. The two elders had already regarded the sacred palace as their home, and they were full of resentment towards Shao Chen for not coming home every few days. Of course, they also knew that Shao Chen often had no choice. After all, the title of the first chosen was not for nothing. There were many things that Shao Chen had to stand up for and carry the banner of the sacred palace. Moreover, Shao Chen was not someone who could endure loneliness. However, when he heard Bai Ruiyue's complaints, Shao Chen responded with a smile. "Don't worry, mother, I won't be going out for a while. I'll stay at home and accompany you." Shao Chen's words were not false. They had just defeated the Night Ghost Pavilion, and it was likely that the Night Ghost Pavilion would be more well-behaved for the next 1 or 2 months. As for the other small conflicts, Xiao Chen did not need to deal with them. Currently, Xiao Chen's only worry was that a true war between the two alliances would break out in the future. When that time came, Xiao Chen wanted to spend more time with his parent. When she heard Xiao Chen's words, Bai Ruiyue immediately beamed with joy. She pulled Xiao Chen's hand and sat down in the pavilion without any explanation. Xiao Qing naturally followed along. The family of three sat in a circle in the pavilion. They did not ask Xiao Chen why he had gone out this time. The two elders knew that they could not do anything about it. The child had grown up and knew what he was doing. The only wish in the hearts of the two elders was that Xiao Chen could be safe and sound. That was enough. They chatted idly with the two elders until evening. Qin Shuru and the other two girls brought Tian Yu back and introduced Tian Yu to the two elders. After that, Bai Ruiyue said that the family had not eaten together for a long time. Xiao Chen and the others could only stay. Of course, Chun Ling and Long Qing were also called over by Xiao Chen. As night fell, Xiao Chen's family sat together and ate while chatting about some boring topics. Of course, the ones who talked the most were the six women, Bai Ruiyue, Qin Shuru, Bai Hua Fairy, Gu Lingyao, Tian Yu, and Long Qing. As for Xiao Chen, Chun Ling, and Xiao Qing, the three men were drinking wine with nothing to do. From time to time, the laughter of the six women could be heard. It was very pleasant. Bai Ruiyue did not look old at all when she was with Qin Shuru and the others. Moreover, under the teasing of the women, the smile on Bai Ruiyue's face never disappeared. They finished the meal happily. In the end, the six women still had no intention of stopping. Xiao Chen and the other two helplessly went to the pavilion in the courtyard and continued to drink. It was finally quiet. As the saying goes, three women make a play. Looking at the bright moon in the sky, Xiao Chen felt very happy at this moment. "What are you thinking about?" Chun Ling asked with a smile just as Xiao Chen was alone in a daze. Hearing this, Xiao Chen smiled and said, "Nothing much. I just feel that this kind of life is not bad." Hearing Xiao Chen's words, Chun Ling scolded with a smile, but then said with a serious expression, "You rascal, there are some things I want to talk to you about." Seeing Chun Ling's serious expression, Xiao Chen also knew that Chun Ling wanted to talk about something serious. He immediately restrained his emotions and looked at Chun Ling with a serious expression and said, "Big brother, if you have something to say, just say it." "Sigh, this matter is related to the Xiao family. I think it's better for you to handle it. After all, father and mother are old and too soft-hearted. Sometimes they can't bring themselves to do it." Sighing softly, Chun Ling said slowly. As he spoke, his eyes secretly glanced at Xiao Qing. "Begging for collection, begging for monthly votes, begging for recommendations." End of chapter. Chapter 11-19. Noticing Chun Ling's gaze, Xiao Qing pretended not to see it and continued to drink his wine. On the other side, after hearing this, a chill flashed through Xiao Chen's eyes as he asked in a deep voice, "What happened to the Xiao clan?" "The Xiao clan is doing very well. Third brother, you don't have to worry about that. However, the problem now is that the Xiao clan is already doing too well. It's so good that some people can't even tell north from south." Chun Ling smiled bitterly. Xiao Chen quickly learned about the Xiao clan from Chun Ling. Just as Chun Ling had said, the Xiao clan was doing fine. In fact, it was great. Many people now knew that the Sacred Palace's ancestor, Xiao Xing, and the first chosen, Xiao Chen, were both from the Xiao clan. With the two of them, the Xiao clan's status naturally rose. Originally, the Xiao clan had always been content with living in a remote corner of the Lingshan County city. They rarely interfered with the affairs of the world. Although there were some disciples in the clan who joined the Sacred Palace, they all relied on their own abilities to pass the test. In the beginning, the disciples of the Xiao clan did a good job and kept their composure. However, as the saying goes, a person's life is the shadow of a tree. Because of Xiao Chen and his granddaughter, many human clans and even sacred sects went to visit the Xiao clan one after another. In the beginning, it was just a simple visit and nothing more than sending some gift. However, in the past few months, many people in the Shao clan began to wantonly marry people from the large clans and sacred sects. In a short 3 months, the Shao clan had already held a total of 8 wedding banquets. The people who were married were either the young ladies of the large clans or the genius disciples of the sacred sects. This was not the end. After the marriage, the Shao clan used Shao Chen's relationship to arrange for the children of the so-called in-laws to enter the Wuchen Sacred Hall to cultivate. These people had not passed the test and were completely forced in. Although the elders of the Wuchen Sacred Hall were angry, there was nothing they could do. Shao Chen was the chosen of the Wuchen Sacred Hall, and all of these large clans were in-laws of the Shao clan. Roughly estimating that there were already no less than 100 people like this who had been forced into the Wuchen Sacred Hall. Not only that, but there were even people who targeted Fei Mei, Qing Luo, and the others. Although the 6 of them were only Shao Chen's maids, everyone knew that Shao Chen valued them greatly. They could be considered the closest group of people to Shao Chen. In addition, although they were maids, they were all outstanding beauties. In addition, the 6 of them following Shao Chen and the others were all expert. As a result, the 6 of their temperaments were not inferior to the young ladies of the large clans. Therefore, many young masters of the large clans and the chosen of the saint sects actually launched a fierce pursuit of Fei Mei, Qing Luo, and the others. He told Shao Chen everything in detail. After hearing Qin Ling's words, Shao Chen's face had completely darkened. In his anger, Shao Chen almost unconsciously slammed his palm on the stone table in front of him. With a bang, the hard stone table was directly shattered into powder by Shao Chen. At the same time, he shouted angrily, "What are you talking about? What do they think my Wuchen Sacred Hall is? A garbage camp?" The sudden loud noise and angry shout caused the girls who were chatting in the room to rush out. Bai Ruyue asked worriedly when she saw Shao Chen's angry expression. "What's wrong, Chener? Why are you so angry? Did something happen?" Shao Chen said angrily in the face of Bai Ruyue's question. "Mother, do you know about the Shao clan? Is what Big Brother said true?" This is true." Hearing this, Bai Ruyue hesitated, but nodded in the end. Bai Ruyue had indeed heard about the Shao clan and had warned the Shao clan. However, the Shao clan didn't listen, especially the Shao clan's branch family members. In fact, the Shao clan's direct descendants didn't participate too much in this matter, but the branch family members were very crazy. Perhaps they were afraid of being poor before, but now that they saw an opportunity to leap over the Dragon Gate, they couldn't stay calm anymore. Just as Chun Ling said, Bai Ruyue and Shao Qing were too soft-hearted. Although the 2 elders were very dissatisfied with the Shao clan's actions, they couldn't harden their hearts to punish them. After reprimanding and reminding them several times, the branch family members still didn't change anything. The 2 elders simply decided to ignore them. In the past few months, the 2 elders didn't have any contact with the Shao clan. Even when the Shao clan came to visit, the 2 elders chose to close the door and refuse to see them. From this point of view, Shao Qing and Bai Ruyue were reasonable. However, because of their personalities, they couldn't handle this matter properly. Seeing his mother nervously nod and admit, Shao Chen quickly realized that his attitude towards his mother was a little bad. However, before Shao Chen could open his mouth to admit his mistake, Long Qing said unhappily, "Little brother, how can you talk to your mother like that? Mother didn't participate in this matter, and has already stopped it. Quickly apologize to your mother." Although Long Qing wasn't Bai Ruyue's biological daughter, she was indeed very good to Bai Ruyue. Even if Shao Chen was disrespectful to Bai Ruyue, Long Qing wouldn't hesitate to scold him. Facing Long Qing's reprimand, Shao Chen obediently said to his mother, Bai Ruyue, "Mother, I was wrong. I was too agitated just now." The 2 elders couldn't be blamed for this matter. They had already cut off all contact with the Xiao family and had never helped the Xiao family in the slightest, much less agreed to any of their unreasonable requests. Hearing Xiao Chen's words, Bai Ruiyue nodded with reddened eyes. Bai Ruiyue was indeed a little sad when she was questioned by her son. After comforting Bai Ruiyue for a while, Xiao Chen waited for Bai Ruiyue to recover before letting Qin Shuru and the others take care of his mother to rest. After Bai Ruiyue left, Xiao Qing finished the wine in his hand, and also got up to leave. However, before he left, Xiao Qing said earnestly to Xiao Chen, "Chen, your mother and I are too soft-hearted. As your father, I know that letting you handle this matter is the best choice. However, if possible, please show some mercy. After all, we are family. Even if the bones are broken, the tendons are still connected." Hearing Xiao Qing's words, Xiao Chen nodded helplessly. Seeing this, Xiao Qing turned to leave and prepared to rest. However, one could vaguely hear Xiao Qing sighing as he walked. "Sigh, this person's heart is red, but his eyes are black. But if the eyes are red, then the heart is black. Sigh, begging for collection, begging for monthly votes, begging for recommendations." End of chapter. Chapter 11-20. Xiao Qing and Bai Ruiyue had both gone to rest. Seeing this, Chen Ling asked softly, "Third brother, what do you plan to do? Do you need my help?" They had always known about this, but Chen Ling and Long Qing's status made it difficult for them to interfere in this matter. First of all, one of them was the holy son of the Soaring Cloud Temple, while the other was the holy daughter of the 10,000 Dragon Temple. They had nothing to do with the Wuchen Temple. In addition, the 10 great temples of the Sacred Palace were completely independent of each other, so the elders of the Wuchen Temple would not listen to their orders. In addition, although Chen Ling and Long Qing addressed Xiao Qing and Bai Ruiyue as their parents, they had nothing to do with the Xiao clan, so it was not appropriate for them to interfere in the Xiao clan's matters. Therefore, as Chen Ling said, it was best for Xiao Chen to personally deal with the Xiao clan. Xiao Chen did not answer Chen Ling's words. Instead, he turned his head to look at Anlan and Lu Zhu, who were nearby, and asked, "Have there been many young masters and holy sons wooing the two of you recently?" Xiao Chen had already forcefully suppressed his anger, so when he asked this question, Xiao Chen's tone was still relatively calm. Hearing this, the two girls did not hide anything and replied truthfully. "There have been many, but young master, we have not agreed to them and have never gone out with them. It's just that they have been pestering us, so we have no choice." Perhaps they were afraid that Xiao Chen would misunderstand, so the two girls specially explained it. Regarding this, Xiao Chen naturally would not blame the two girls and only said in a deep voice, "If you meet these people in the future, directly beat them up. No matter who they are, no matter what their status is, if you can't beat them, let Shui Rou and the others do it. Directly beat them up." Hearing this, Anlan and Lu Zhu were overjoyed and immediately nodded in agreement. Actually, they had long wanted to violently beat up those young masters. All day long, they were like flies circling around them, annoying them to death. Now that they had Xiao Chen's order, they could attack without any scruples. In these past few years, Anlan, Lu Zhu, and the others had been by Xiao Chen's side, so their cultivations had naturally risen along with him. All of them had already attained the initial stage of the Dao transformation realm, so it wasn't a problem for them to bash up those young masters of the great clans. Moreover, didn't Xiao Chen say that if they couldn't defeat them, they could ask Qin Shuru and the others to make a move? In truth, the 6 women had never thought of getting married. They only had one wish in their lives, and that was to stay by Xiao Chen's side and take care of Xiao Chen's life. Even if it was only as a maid, it didn't matter. They knew that they weren't good enough for Xiao Chen, so the 6 women were very clear about their positions. But even if they were just maids, the 6 women's hearts couldn't possibly hold another man. After instructing the 2 women, Xiao Chen turned to look at Bai Ruiyue and Xiao Qing's room. At this time, the lights had already been extinguished, and the two elders had clearly fallen asleep. Soon, Qin Shuru and the others returned. Perhaps they could tell that Xiao Chen wasn't in a good mood, so the women obediently kept quiet. Only 100 Flower Fairy said softly, "Mother and the others have already fallen asleep. Don't worry." Hearing this, Xiao Chen nodded slightly, then looked at 100 Flower Fairy and the others and said, "Spend more time with Mother these few days. In addition, during this period of time, no one is allowed to see Mother and Father, especially the people from the Xiao clan. No matter who comes, stop them. Tomorrow I will send people to guard them." Not allowing Bai Riyue and Xiao Qing to see outsiders, especially the people from the Xiao clan. Hearing this, everyone clearly knew what Xiao Chen wanted to do. Obviously, he wanted to make a move on the restless people in the Xiao clan. In order to prevent these people from pleading in front of his parents, Xiao Chen simply didn't allow them to see each other. Just now, Xiao Chen had promised Xiao Qing that he would be merciful, but this was only for those who could be forgiven. To put it bluntly, Xiao Chen had only promised Xiao Qing to appease his father. As for Xiao Chen himself, he still had to do what he had to do. This time, the Xiao clan had indeed made Xiao Chen a little angry. Hearing Xiao Chen's words, the women nodded solemnly, then the group left the small courtyard, leaving behind Enlan and Lu Lu to take care of the two elders. Chun Ling and Long Qing bid farewell, and returned to their respective temples. After settling Tianyu down, Xiao Chen returned to his residence, and silently rested for the night. Early the next morning, Xiao Chen summoned all the elders of the Wuchen Temple to the main hall of the Wuchen Temple. At the peak of the Wuchen Peak, there was a pure white and ethereal hall. Xiao Chen sat in the main seat, and below him, nearly 100 half-saint elders of the Wuchen Temple stood respectfully on both sides. They didn't know why Xiao Chen had suddenly summoned everyone, but seeing that Xiao Chen's expression didn't seem too good, all the elders cautiously stood where they were. Tapping his fingers lightly on the armrest, Xiao Chen was silent for a long time before he slowly opened his mouth and spoke. "I heard that a lot of new disciples have come to the Wuchen Temple recently. How is it? Aren't these people very strong and talented? They actually allowed my Wuchen Temple to recruit over 100 new disciples in just a few months. Moreover, they weren't selected from the in-name disciples, but from the outside world. It seems that my Wuchen Temple is really attractive." Following Xiao Chen's words, the expressions of the elders below turned serious, and some of them couldn't help but turn pale. Xiao Chen took in the changes in everyone's expressions, especially the elders whose faces were as pale as paper. He paid special attention to them. There was no need to think about it. These people were definitely the ones who handled it. Those children of large clans who were forcibly inserted were probably approved by them. Xiao Chen locked his gaze on the elders. After waiting for a few moments, he continued. "Why, don't you have anything to say to me?" Since Xiao Chen had already said so, the elders present were no fools. Immediately, the pale-faced elders stepped forward and knelt before Xiao Chen, respectfully saying, "Thank you for your kindness. Holy Son, we have sinned." Xiao Chen definitely knew the whole story, which was why the elders didn't dare to hide the truth and immediately told Xiao Chen the truth. "Holy Son, please understand. We only accepted these people because we were worried about the Xiao clan," the few of them explained. Upon hearing their explanation, Xiao Chen naturally knew that they did it because of the Xiao family. But so what? After hearing their words, Xiao Chen immediately snarled. "This is the sacred palace, the Wuchen Temple. What does it have to do with the Xiao family? You are the elders of my Wuchen Temple, not the elders of the Xiao family. What are you afraid of? Could it be that you treat my Wuchen Temple as a garbage dump?" Indeed, he was furious. Upon seeing Xiao Chen's furious roar, the elders below instantly knelt on the ground. Please add, please vote, please recommend. End of chapter. Chapter 11:21. Xiao Chen was usually a very easygoing person and had never lost his temper in the Wuchen Sacred Hall. This was the first time the elders had seen Xiao Chen in a rage. The cold air in the hall was oppressive. Naturally, the cold air came from Xiao Chen. After shouting angrily, he looked at the elders who were kneeling respectfully on the ground. Only then did the anger in his heart gradually dissipate. He knew that these elders were only afraid of the Xiao clan and that they hadn't done anything wrong, but Xiao Chen was still angry. As elders of the sacred palace, why did they have to care about the Xiao clan's feelings? As Xiao Chen had said, this was the sacred palace, the Wuchen Sacred Hall, and it had nothing to do with the Xiao clan. After taking a deep breath, Xiao Chen said in a deep voice, "All right, get up." Half of the elders of the Wuchen Sacred Hall were old acquaintances with Xiao Chen. Even if they didn't know each other, they had seen each other before. Now that they were all kneeling respectfully in front of him, Xiao Chen didn't feel good. Hearing Xiao Chen's words, the elders stood up, but they still kept their heads down and didn't dare to look directly at Xiao Chen. Xiao Chen said angrily, "Why are you all lowering your heads? As elders of the Wuchen Sacred Hall, all of you are like frosted eggplants. Do you only know how to keep quiet when something happens? Now that something has happened, it's time to think of a solution, not silence." With that, Xiao Chen asked the elders to raise their heads. Then, Xiao Chen continued, "Tell me, how many disciples do we have in the Wuchen Sacred Hall, how many came in through connections, and how many came in through the Xiao clan's connections?" To be honest, Xiao Chen only had a general understanding of the situation in the Wuchen Sacred Hall. It couldn't be helped. Xiao Chen didn't spend much time in the Sacred Palace and basically left all the matters of the Wuchen Sacred Hall to the elders present. To put it bluntly, Xiao Chen was a hands-off boss. In response to Xiao Chen's question, an elder on the left side of Xiao Chen quickly stepped forward. He was the Grand Elder of the Wuchen Sacred Hall and was a half-step saint. His name was Chen Mo and he was personally promoted by Xiao Chen. Chen Mo stepped forward and bowed to Xiao Chen before saying, "Successor, there are a total of 12,000 disciples in the Wuchen Sacred Hall. Among them, 10,000 are core disciples, 1780 are core disciples, 200 are personal disciples, and 10 are prospective successors. There are 584 disciples who didn't take the test, and 210 of them are related to the Xiao clan." Hearing Chen Mo's reply, the anger in Xiao Chen's heart burned even more. Just the number of people who were related to the Xiao family had reached 210. It seemed that Chen Ling's estimate of more than 100 people last night was still too low. More than 500 people didn't pass the test. Good, very good. It seems that my Wuchen temple has become a gathering camp for these rich young masters. Xiao Chen was so angry that he laughed and said with a sneer. Chen Mo didn't say anything when he heard Xiao Chen's words. He just stood there silently. After forcefully suppressing his anger, Xiao Chen looked at Chen Mo and said, "Pass down my orders. All the disciples of the Wuchen Sacred Hall will undergo the test again in 3 days. From prospective successors to ordinary disciples, everyone must participate. Anyone who doesn't participate will automatically be considered as having forfeited and will be expelled from the Wuchen Sacred Hall and the Sacred Palace." All the disciples of the Wuchen Sacred Hall would undergo the test again. All the elders present were stunned when they heard this. The successor was going to kill them. While all the elders were stunned, Xiao Chen continued, "In addition, all those who didn't pass the test and entered the Wuchen Sacred Hall will be disqualified and expelled from the Wuchen Sacred Hall and the Sacred Palace. The Grand Elder will personally supervise this matter. These black sheep must be expelled from the Sacred Palace within 3 days." The 548 disciples who entered the Sacred Palace through connections didn't even have the right to take the test. The elders were even more shocked when they heard this. At this point, anyone could tell that Xiao Chen was really angry this time. However, Chen Mo had no choice but to brace himself in the face of Xiao Chen's anger. "Successor, What about the Shao clan's main disciples? Are they the same? Chen Mo had to ask clearly about the Shao clan's main disciples. After all, they were all Shao Chen's clansmen. Shao Chen's face darkened when he heard Chen Mo's words. He said coldly, "Grand Elder, didn't you hear me clearly? I said that all those who didn't participate in the test and entered the Wuchen's sacred hall will be expelled, regardless of their identity. Do you understand?" "I understand." Chen Mo nodded. He sighed inwardly. That was good. As long as he had Shao Chen's words, he wouldn't have any other concerns. Shao Chen had gathered all the elders here to talk about this matter. Shao Chen immediately looked at everyone and said, "Go. Prepare for the test in 3 days. After 3 days, everyone in the Wuchen's sacred hall will be tested again and the disciples will be divided again." With that, Shao Chen stood up and disappeared from the hall. Only with Shao Chen's departure did the elders breathe a long sigh of relief. After all these years of growth, Shao Chen was still young, but the oppressive power he exuded made the half-saint elders feel a lingering fear. In addition, Shao Chen's strength was no weaker than a half-saint, so the oppressive power he exuded was naturally even stronger. Now that Shao Chen had left, the elders walked out of the hall together. As the great elder, Chen Mo was naturally surrounded by a lot of people, and many of them were asking him questions. "Grand Elder, the chosen saint's actions this time will probably cause great waves in the Wuchen's sacred hall." "That's right. Grand Elder, do you think the chosen saint is truly angry this time? He showed no mercy to the members of the Shao clan. Don't let your imagination run wild. Just do your best. The chosen saint didn't blame us this time, but if something like this happens again in the future, I'm afraid we won't be able to escape punishment even though we're half-saint elders," Chen Mo said indifferently in response to everyone's questions. He could understand Shao Chen. How could someone like Shao Chen allow a few rats to spoil the entire pot of soup that was the Wuchen Sacred Hall? Therefore, even if it was the members of the Shao clan, Shao Chen wouldn't show any mercy. The elders went off to make preparations. At the same time, Shao Chen, who had returned to the cave, went directly to the courtyard where his parents were. Seeing that Qin Shuru and the other girls were there, Shao Chen heaved a sigh of relief and said to Enlan and Lu Zhu, "Fei Rufei and Fei Ru come back. I'll personally deal with the matters of the Shao clan." Shao Chen knew that Fei Mei and the other 3 girls had gone there under by Ryue's orders. Their purpose was to warn the Shao clan not to go overboard. However, in Shao Chen's opinion, this was no longer necessary. He had to deal with the Shao clan's matters himself. Begging for collection, begging for monthly votes, begging for recommendations. End of chapter. Chapter 11:22. He told Fei Mei and the other 2 girls to come back directly and that there was no need to say anything to the Shao family. After that, Shao Chen chatted with Bai Ryue and Shao Qing for a while. The 2 elders did not ask a single word about the Shao family. Obviously, the 2 elders had thought it through and handed over the matter to Shao Chen. The 2 elders were not unreasonable people. They also knew that at this time, if they asked Shao Chen for anything, it would only make things difficult for Shao Chen. Compared to Shao Chen, the Shao family's position in the 2 elders' hearts was naturally far inferior. Therefore, the 2 elders chose to ignore it. As long as their family was well, it was enough. It might be a little selfish to say this, but there was no other way. Some people in the Shao family were really too much. After chatting with the 2 elders for a while, Shao Chen was dragged by Tianyu to the holy region to play around. This woman was really big-hearted. Shao Chen was already upset because of the Shao family's matter, but this woman still wanted to accompany him. In addition, Qin Shuru and the other 2 girls also asked Shao Chen to accompany Tianyu more. After all, she was a guest from afar. Shao Chen had no choice but to accompany Tianyu to stroll around the holy region. The holy region was very big, and there were naturally many places with beautiful scenery. He also knew what was going on. Tianyu was very happy today, and in turn, she even enlightened Xiao Chen. Strolling by a famous lake in the holy region, Tianyu said with a smile on her face, "Well, our great holy son Xiao, the Xiao family is making you so upset. You don't have to go so far, right? The matter will be settled eventually. What's the point of being angry here alone? Moreover, you came out to play with me today, so you have to be happy." The Xiao family naturally did not pose any threat to Xiao Chen. In addition, this matter was only done by a portion of the Xiao family. It was not to say that the entire Xiao family had changed. Under Tianyue's guidance, Xiao Chen also gradually relaxed. Indeed, there would always be a time when things would be resolved. Moreover, he had already made arrangements and believed that there would not be any problems. After accompanying Tianyue for a day in the sanctuary, Xiao Chen didn't do anything else for the next few days. However, after the news that Xiao Chen ordered all the disciples of Wuchen Temple to go through the assessment again spread, many disciples of Wuchen Temple were shocked. Everyone was re-evaluated and re-evaluated. This caused many people to feel conflicted. Of course, the ones who were the most dissatisfied were naturally the disciples of the various large clans who had entered through connections. They had joined the sacred palace and the unsullied sacred hall without going through the assessment. Xiao Chen's order was simple: expel all of them from the sacred palace. Therefore, on the second day, Xiao Chen ordered all of them to leave the sacred palace before tomorrow. Otherwise, the unsullied sacred hall would have no choice but to use force to expel them. The disciples of the various large clans naturally couldn't agree to being expelled from the sacred palace. However, they didn't have the courage to disobey Xiao Chen's order. At night, the several hundred disciples of the various large clans gathered together in fear. Among them, a young man in the uniform of a core disciple was brought to the main seat. The young man was able to command the young masters of the various large clans not because of his strength, but because of his identity. He was a member of the Xiao family, and his bloodline was closer to the main branch of the Xiao family. His name was Xiao Tianyang, and he was currently sitting on the main seat. Xiao Tianyang's expression wasn't very good. On the contrary, it was somewhat gloomy. In terms of seniority, Xiao Tianyang could be considered Xiao Chen's cousin. Of course, this cousin was only a distant cousin. After all, he wasn't a disciple of the main branch of the Xiao family. He was only a disciple of the side branch. However, such a side branch disciple's status was already unreachable in the eyes of the young masters of the various large clans. This was because he was related to Xiao Chen. Originally, Xiao Tianyang's days could be said to be very carefree due to the respect and pursuit of these young masters of the various large clans. He used Xiao Chen's name to act like a tyrant in the unsullied sacred hall. Although he was a core disciple, even direct disciples didn't dare to offend him in the slightest. This made Xiao Tianyang, who had lived in the Lingshan County city since he was young and didn't have a high status, suddenly feel like a crow had turned into a phoenix. He liked this feeling very much. Those young masters and young ladies who were unreachable in his eyes when he was young were now all thinking of ways to curry favor with him. Even the young ladies of the large clans were willing to give themselves to him. This made Xiao Tianyang smile even in his sleep. Unfortunately, because of Xiao Chen's order, Xiao Tianyang's good days were about to come to an end. If he was expelled from the sacred palace, where could he go with his talent? Obviously, he could only return to the Lingshan County city. After witnessing the prosperity of the outside world and the power of the sacred palace, how could Xiao Tianyang be willing to leave? Therefore, he was in a very bad mood. Sensing Xiao Tianyang's gloomy expression, the many young masters below spoke up one after another. "Young Master Xiao, what should we do now? Chosen Xiao Chen has already given the order. We must leave the sacred palace before tomorrow." "Yes, young Master Xiao. Why don't you go and plead with the Chosen? After all, you are the Chosen's cousin. I believe he will listen to you." These young masters were so respectful to Shao Tianyang because of his relationship with Shao Chun. Now that something had happened, Shao Tianyang naturally had to plead with Shao Chun. However, only Shao Tianyang knew that he wasn't familiar with Shao Chun at all. They had only met a few times since they were young. Asking Shao Chun to plead? What a joke. He understood this, but he couldn't say it out loud. Therefore, Shao Tianyang could only suffer in silence, unable to voice out his grievances. He couldn't plead with Shao Chun, and Shao Tianyang wasn't willing to leave the sacred palace. Moreover, Shao Tianyang vaguely understood that Shao Chun was doing this mainly because of the Shao clan. Some of the Shao clan's actions had thoroughly angered Shao Chun. Therefore, Shao Chun was preparing to take action against the Shao clan. Helplessness and unwillingness intertwined in Shao Tianyang's heart. In the end, these various emotions turned into a kind of madness. Shao Chun, we are all members of the Shao clan. Now that you've succeeded, what's wrong with our Shao clan basking in some of your glory? Why must you be so heartless? I'm your cousin. I don't believe you can do anything to me. Shao Tianyang had sunk into madness. He didn't want to lose the luxurious life before him. Therefore, after a moment of silence, Shao Tianyang coldly said, "Everyone, I know my cousin's character very well. It's useless to plead now. We can only think of a way to make him lower his head and constantly put pressure on him so that he has no choice but to change his previous decision. Begging for collection, begging for monthly votes, begging for recommendations." Chapter 11:23. Shao Tianyang had gone completely mad. He actually wanted to go against Shao Chun. This was simply a joke. Who was he and who was Shao Chun? Shao Tianyang was merely a core disciple who had gotten in through the back door. He actually dared to disobey Shao Chun's orders. As the saying goes, evil comes from courage. With this thought, Shao Tianyang threw caution to the wind. Of course, in Shao Tianyang's opinion, he was just going all out. Even if he couldn't defeat Shao Chun in the end, he could still return to Lingshan County City. He and Shao Chun were cousins. He couldn't allow Shao Chun to do anything to him. Could it be that Shao Chun even dared to kill his own clansman? Shao Tianyang believed that Shao Chun wouldn't do anything to him. This was what he was truly relying on. Hearing Shao Tianyang's words, the surrounding young masters and young mistresses were puzzled. "Young Master Shao, what do you mean? Do you want us to go against Lord Saint? Aren't you just sending us to our deaths?" "A bunch of idiot. Who asked you to go against my cousin? I'm only saying to give him some pressure. This time, my cousin isn't just targeting us. All the disciples of the unsullied Sacred Hall must be re-evaluated. I can see that many people are dissatisfied. Say, if someone successfully incites everyone's dissatisfaction behind his back, will my cousin still be able to act willfully in the face of the opposition of all the disciples of the unsullied Sacred Hall?" Shao Tianyang sneered softly. The young masters and young mistresses were stunned by his words. It had to be said that Shao Tianyang had truly changed. Facing so many young masters and young mistresses, he actually called them idiot. However, these young masters and young mistresses didn't dare to show the slightest dissatisfaction. This was the benefit of authority. Therefore, Shao Tianyang wasn't willing to give up. No matter what, he had to go all out. After a brief moment of astonishment, someone quickly regained his senses. He looked at Shao Tianyang in shock and said, "Young Master Shao, are you saying that we should incite the other disciples?" This young master was rather quick-witted. He quickly understood Shao Tianyang's intentions. It was very simple. Shao Tianyang wanted the young masters and young mistresses present to incite the other disciples of the unsullied Sacred Hall so that everyone would oppose Shao Chun's decision. That way, there would be hope of forcing Shao Chun to change his decision. Hearing this, Shao Tianyang nodded. Then, after a night of secret planning, they finally came to an agreement. Then, these young masters and young ladies, who could be said to be at the end of their rope, began to take action. They secretly roped in disciples from all over and made them voice their opposition to Xiao Chen's decision. Xiao Chen was still unaware of the plan of Xiao Tianyong and the others. The next morning, Xiao Chen was cultivating in the courtyard as usual. Today was the third day, and also the final deadline that Xiao Chen had given to Xiao Tianyong and the others. Before sunset today, Xiao Tianyong and the others who had not passed the assessment had to leave the sacred palace. Otherwise, Xiao Chen would have to chase them away by force. Xiao Chen wasn't worried about Xiao Tianyong and the others. What could a group of profligate young masters possibly do? Moreover, Xiao Chen was in charge of this matter, so he wasn't worried at all. But very soon, Chen Mo hastily arrived outside the dwelling and requested to see Xiao Chen. He asked Lan to bring Chen Mo over. Xiao Chen noticed that Chen Mo's complexion was very bad when he saw him, so he asked out of curiosity, "What's wrong, great elder? Why do you look so miserable so early in the morning?" Chen Mo didn't beat around the bush and directly said, "Chosen, there's been some hiccups." It turned out that early in the morning, many disciples in the dustless sacred hall had banded together to oppose Xiao Chen's decision and begged Xiao Chen to retract his order. If it was only a small number of disciples, there would naturally be no need to pay attention to them. But there were too many of them, almost half of all the disciples in the dustless sacred hall. Although Gudu Wuya and the others were still contending with so many disciples, the results were minimal. It was as if these people had planned this beforehand. Xiao Chen's face darkened slightly when he heard Chen Mo's words. So many disciples have suddenly banded together to oppose. It seems that someone is adding fuel to the fire behind this matter. Investigate, I want to see who's so bold. So many people had suddenly stood up to oppose. There was definitely someone behind this instigation. Chen Mo had to thoroughly investigate this matter and find out who was behind it. Chen Mo quickly withdrew after receiving Xiao Chen's order and began to thoroughly investigate this matter. At the same time, Xiao Chen already had some guesses in his heart. Secretly inciting so many disciples, it was most likely the young masters and young ladies of the large clans. Only they had the motive to do so. They really don't know what's good for them. Xiao Chen secretly cursed. Originally, he didn't intend to argue with these young masters and young ladies, but who would have thought that they actually didn't know what was good for them? Xiao Chen secretly cursed. At this time, Tian Yu strode in and heard Xiao Chen's cursing from afar. Tian Yu said with a smile, "What's the matter? It's so early in the morning. Who made our great holy son Xiao angry?" "It's just a small matter," Xiao Chen replied. Xiao Chen didn't intend to tell Tian Yu about this matter, but in the end, he couldn't stand Tian Yu's coaxing and pestering. He told her about this matter and also told her his own guess. Hearing that Xiao Chen believed that it was those young masters and young ladies who did it, Tian Yu slightly smiled and said, "Those young masters and young ladies are definitely involved, but they shouldn't be the mastermind because they don't have the guts. As long as they aren't brainless people, they definitely won't go against you in the dustless sacred hall. So the mastermind should be someone else." "Not them? Then who could it be?" Xiao Chen said. "Haven't you already guessed it?" Tian Yu smiled. Without waiting for Xiao Chen to speak, Tian Yu stood up and said in a bored manner, "All right, it seems like you aren't in the mood to accompany me today. I'll go look for Shui Rou and the others." After saying that, Tian Yu left the courtyard, leaving Xiao Chen alone in the courtyard with a complicated expression. Those young masters and young ladies didn't have the guts, so who could the mastermind be? In fact, the answer was already self-evident. In the dustless sacred hall, who else could have the guts to go against him and wasn't afraid that he would kill them except for the Xiao clan? Xiao Chen already had a guess in his heart, but he wasn't willing to believe it. However, the truth often made people feel helpless. Later in the afternoon, Chen Mo came again. He had already investigated the matter, and the mastermind behind it was Xiao Chen's clan brother, Xiao Tianyang. Hearing Chen Mo's words, Xiao Chen's face sank and a cold light flickered in his eyes. He really is a member of the Xiao clan, Xiao Chen unconsciously said in a cold voice. Do you really think that I won't dare to kill you just because you're a member of the Xiao clan? Good, Xiao Tianyang. Great Elder, immediately arrest Xiao Tianyang and everyone involved in this matter. In addition, pass down my orders. Xiao Tianyang has violated the rules of the Sacred Hall and will be executed immediately after the test is over. As for the others, cripple their cultivation and expel them from the Sacred Hall. They will be sent to various spirit veins to work as laborers, begging for collection, begging for monthly votes, begging for recommendations. Chapter 11:24. Xiao Chen ordered coldly. Upon hearing Xiao Chen's order, Grand Elder Chen Mo was taken aback. After staring blankly for a few moments, Chen Mo cautiously said, Holy Son, Xiao Tianyang is... He didn't expect Xiao Chen to actually want to kill Xiao Tianyang. Chen Mo originally wanted to remind Xiao Chen that Xiao Tianyang was a member of the Xiao family, but before he could finish, Xiao Chen coldly interrupted him. Nothing can be accomplished without rules. The sacred palace has its own rules. Don't tell me that just because you're a member of the Xiao family, you can violate them without restraint? Inciting the disciples to riot is already a capital offense. No matter who you are, you must be punished according to the law. Grand Elder, if you can't do it, I'll just replace you with someone else. Xiao Chen was already somewhat dissatisfied with Chen Mo's attitude. In Xiao Chen's opinion, Chen Mo had too many concerns and wasn't as decisive as a Grand Elder. Sensing Xiao Chen's unwillingness, Chen Mo hurriedly nodded in response and repeatedly promised that he would handle the matter well. Upon seeing this, Xiao Chen dismissed Chen Mo. After Chen Mo left, Xiao Chen sat alone in the main hall with an ugly expression on his face. Xiao Tianyang had indeed gone too far this time. Xiao Chen had originally planned to spare Xiao Tianyang's life and expel him from the sacred palace, but since Xiao Tianyang was courting death, there was no one to blame but himself. Xiao Tianyang clearly didn't expect Xiao Chen's anger to be so fierce and come so quickly. It had only been half a day since the Xiao family's young masters took action, but the entire Dustless Temple's punishment hall was mobilized under the leadership of Gudu Wuya and Huang Fu Ao. They immediately began arresting people in the Dustless Temple. All the young masters and young ladies who participated in this incident were arrested and locked up in the Dustless Temple's dungeon to await their execution. Xiao Chen's actions were swift and merciless. Following the actions of the Law Enforcement Hall, the disciples who had been in an uproar in the unsullied sacred temple instantly fell silent and no longer objected to Xiao Chen's decision. As they watched the punishment hall wantonly arrest people, the people of the unsullied sacred hall finally realized that resisting the chosen one Xiao Chen here was absolutely courting death. It was laughable that they had thought that they could resist Xiao Chen by joining forces. Little did they know that this would only enrage Xiao Chen even more. The arrest didn't last long and ended in less than 2 hours. As for Xiao Tianyang, after he was personally arrested by Gudu Wuya, he was still shouting mischievously along the way. Let me go. What are you doing? Do you people from the disciplinary hall want to die? Do you know who I am? I'm the chosen one, Xiao Chen's cousin. How dare you arrest me? Xiao Tianyang was still using Xiao Chen's authority to act tyrannically even though he was at death's door. Little did he know that as soon as he finished speaking, Gudu Wuya didn't give him any face and directly slapped him. I know you're from the Xiao family, but the chosen one personally ordered your arrest. So, save it. The arrest of Xiao Tianyang was personally ordered by Xiao Chen, so Gudu Wuya and the others didn't feel the slightest pressure. Xiao Tianyang was stunned when he heard that. The development of the situation seemed to be completely different from what he had imagined. After being stunned for a moment, Xiao Tianyang opened his mouth and shouted again. I don't believe it! I want the chosen one, I want my cousin Xiao Chen, let me go! Xiao Tianyang shouted that he wanted to see Xiao Chen, but Guduwia and the others obviously ignored him and directly locked him up in the dungeon. Following the disciplinary hall's thunderous actions, the situation in the Wuchen Sacred Hall quickly quieted down. However, the other 9 sacred halls of the Sacred Palace naturally noticed the commotion in the Wuchen Sacred Hall over the past few days. The chosen were all curious about what was going on with Xiao Chen. Why did he make such a big move? Some people didn't know what had happened in the Wuchen Sacred Hall, but people like Chen Ling, Long Qing and the others who were more familiar with Xiao Chen naturally knew why Xiao Chen was doing this. However, whether they knew the reason or not, the chosen had no intention of interfering. Moreover, they couldn't interfere at all. The matters of the Wuchen Sacred Hall weren't something they could meddle in. Countless pairs of eyes were fixed on the Wuchen Sacred Hall. At the same time, in Xiao Chen's residence, Qin Shuru and the others hurried back after hearing that Xiao Chen had captured the young masters, young ladies and Xiao Tianyang. Seeing that Xiao Chen's expression was a little ugly, the 3 women didn't dare to ask too much. They stayed by Xiao Chen's side and asked about what happened. In the end, when they learned that Xiao Chen planned to execute Xiao Tianyang, the 3 women were a little shocked. Husband, Xiao Tianyang is still a member of the Xiao clan. Isn't it a little too much to kill him like this? Qin Shuru looked at Xiao Chen and said. Xiao Chen's killing of Xiao Tianyang would definitely attract the opposition of some members of the Xiao clan. When that happened, they would all be a family, and their relationship wouldn't be easy to handle. Qin Shuru's worries weren't without reason. However, Xiao Chen had already decided on this matter. Since Xiao Tianyang liked to cause trouble, then he would execute him as an example to others. Since he had already made his decision, Xiao Chen said calmly after hearing Qin Shuru's words. Xiao Tianyang must die. However, who is he? He has violated the rules of the palace and must be punished. Xiao Chen had already made up his mind. Qin Shuru and the others didn't say anything else. They understood Xiao Chen's character very well. They knew that Xiao Chen was very stubborn. Once he had decided on something, it was basically impossible to change his mind. On the second day after Xiao Tianyang and the others were captured, the re-examination of all the disciples of the Wuchen Sacred Hall officially began. From the prospective saints to the ordinary disciples, everyone had to go through the re-examination. At the same time, if they failed the examination, they would be directly demoted to the rank of general until they were demoted to a nominal disciple. No one dared to disobey Xiao Chen. Therefore, every disciple of the Wuchen Sacred Hall attached great importance to this examination. They didn't want to be directly kicked out of the Wuchen Sacred Hall and be demoted to a nominal disciple with no status to speak of. The examination was completely handed over to Chen Mo and the other elders. Under the control of the elders, the examination was carried out in an orderly manner. However, it was naturally impossible to complete the examination with so many people in a day. According to the plan, the re-examination would last for 7 days. During these 7 days, all the disciples had to complete the examination. While Xiao Chen was re-examining the disciples of the Wuchen Sacred Hall, in a courtyard in the Lingshan Commandery City's Xiao clan. This courtyard was the residence of Xiao Tianyang's parents. Xiao Tianyang's parents, who were used to living a life of luxury, were currently sitting in the front hall with a worried expression. Xiao Tianyang's father was sighing constantly without his usual dignity. The woman beside him was sobbing softly. At the same time, over a dozen Xiao clan members were sitting in a circle in the front hall. Begging for your collection, begging for monthly votes, begging for recommendations. Chapter 11:25. Xiao Tianyang's parents and a group of Xiao family members sat together in a circle. Everyone wore a grave expression. It was obvious that they already knew what happened in the sacred palace. Xiao Tianyang's parents were undoubtedly in the worst mood because Xiao Tianyang had been captured by Xiao Chen. According to the news from the sacred palace, Xiao Chen intended to execute Xiao Tianyang directly. How can Xiao Chen kill his master? Even if Tianyang is in the wrong, he's still a member of our Xiao family. How can Xiao Chen do that? After a moment of silence, a middle-aged man with a rough appearance spoke first. He was Xiao Tianyang's uncle. It was obvious that he was very dissatisfied with Xiao Chen's decision. He felt that Xiao Chen was too ruthless and wouldn't even let off a member of his own family. However, after hearing his words, another member of the Xiao clan sighed and said, "That's right. I've already told all of you that some things can't be overdone. Chen can take care of the Xiao family, but he will never allow the Xiao family to become a black sheep." So sighed. They had long anticipated that such a day would come. Everyone was talking amongst themselves, and at this moment, the Xiao family's patriarch arrived. The people present were all collateral relatives of the Xiao clan. When they heard that the clan master had arrived, they naturally stood up to welcome him, especially Xiao Tianyang's parents. When they saw the clan master outside the courtyard, the two of them knelt down with a plop. Xiao Tianyang's mother even spoke in a tearful voice. "Patriarch, I beg you to save Tianyang. He's still a member of our Xiao family." Xiao Tianyang's mother begged bitterly, but the patriarch responded with a complicated expression. "There's no turning back. I can't help even if I want to." Who could change Xiao Chen's decision? Upon hearing this, Xiao Tianyang's mother couldn't catch her breath and fainted. Seeing this, the servants hurriedly carried her away to rest. The patriarch couldn't bear to see Xiao Tianyang's father's sorrowful face. At the same time, he blamed himself. "Sigh, it's all my fault. If I had stopped you earlier, this wouldn't have happened." Some of the branch families of the Xiao clan had wantonly married into the Xiao clan. This was the main culprit, and also the reason why things had developed to this point. As the patriarch, he knew very well that Xiao Chen would definitely order the Xiao clan to reorganize. When that time came, the entire Xiao clan would probably be in a real mess. However, he could only blame himself for this. There was clearly no other way to deal with Xiao Tianyang's matter. Although he could still plead with Xiao Qing and Bai Riyue, the two of them were currently in the sacred palace and he couldn't even see them. Moreover, using voice transmission talismans was like throwing a stone into the sea. There was no reply at all. What the Xiao clan members didn't know was that the two elders didn't see the voice transmission talismans they gave to Xiao Qing and Bai Riyue. They were intercepted by Qin Shuru and the other two women on the way. It was easy for Qin Shuru and the other two women to cut off contact between the two elders and the outside world. What's more, the two elders didn't want to pay attention to these matters. They would only be annoyed if they knew, so they might as well choose not to know. The Xiao clan patriarch's guess was correct. The next day, Xiao Chen's order was sent from the sacred palace to the Xiao clan in Lingshan City. In the main hall of the Xiao clan manor, the patriarch looked at the voice transmission talisman in his hand with an ugly expression. After a long while, he smiled helplessly and said, "Sigh, if you knew this would happen, you wouldn't have done it in the first place." Xiao Chen's order was very simple. It was a single sentence, and he wanted the Xiao clan to purge the entire clan. The order was very simple, but the Xiao clan patriarch clearly knew what Xiao Chen wanted. Xiao Chen clearly didn't want to see those rats again. It was impossible for him to disobey Xiao Chen's order. That was why the Xiao clan patriarch said such a thing after receiving the order. The Wuchen Sacred Hall's assessment was still in progress. At the same time, the Xiao clan's internal affairs were also temporarily mobilized. Those Xiao clan members who had done illegal things were all punished. The light punishment was whipping or having their monthly allowance deducted. The heavy punishment was being sent back to the clan and having nothing to do with the Shao clan in the future. Shao Chen was naturally aware of the Shao clan patriarch's actions. Shao Chen was very satisfied with his performance. He believed that after this purge, such a thing wouldn't happen again in the Shao clan. Time passed day by day. 7 days later, the Wuchen Sacred Hall's assessment ended. All the disciples had participated in the assessment, and Shao Chen was gratified that none of the disciples had been eliminated because they weren't strong enough. These people had all been admitted to the Unsullied Temple after passing the formal assessment. Now that they had been reassessed, they were indeed the real deal. Shao Chen felt a bit better about this. After the assessment ended, the Shao clan's reorganization was still in progress. On the second day after the assessment ended, Shao Chen issued an order to publicly execute Shao Tianyang. At noon, Shao Tianyang was suppressed on the main square of the Wuchen Sacred Hall. Many disciples of the Wuchen Sacred Hall were terrified. Until now, many people still didn't believe that Shao Chen would really execute Shao Tianyang. After all, Shao Tianyang was a member of the Shao clan. However, the facts quickly proved that Shao Chen wasn't lying. He wouldn't let Shao Tianyang off just because he was a member of the Shao clan. Shao Chen didn't show himself. Instead, he asked Guduwuya to come forward. Following Guduwuya's order, Shao Tianyang's head fell to the ground. Until his death, Shao Tianyang didn't dare to believe that Shao Chen would actually execute him. Moreover, he didn't hesitate at all and was extremely decisive. Shao Tianyang's death caused the surrounding disciples to open their mouths in shock. At the same time, Shao Chen also clearly conveyed a message to all the disciples of the Wuchen Sacred Hall. That was, in the Wuchen Sacred Hall, no matter who it was or what status they had, they would be punished if they violated the rules of the Sacred Hall. For a moment, many disciples were filled with deep veneration. Correspondingly, after this incident, there wouldn't be another person like Shao Tianyang in the Wuchen Sacred Hall who used his status to commit outrages. This was because Shao Chen could even execute his own clansmen, let alone others. Everyone understood that from today onwards, the Wuchen Sacred Hall didn't care about status or family background. It only cared about strength. The stronger one was, the higher one's status and the better one's treatment. The two complemented each other. After Shao Tianyang was executed, the other young masters and young mistresses were crippled of their cultivation and sent to various spirit veins to work as laborers. Although the various large clans and sects were pained by this, they clearly didn't dare to reason with Shao Chen. Therefore, the entire process wasn't obstructed in any way. After dealing with the Shao clan's matter with lightning speed, Shao Chen secretly heaved a sigh of relief in his abode. Begging for collection, begging for monthly votes, begging for recommendations. Chapter 11:26. The Unsullied Temple was purged by Shao Chen with an iron fist, and the members of the Shao clan who used to flaunt their power were punished one after another. Of course, Shao Chen didn't punish all the Shao family members. Shao Chen didn't make things difficult for the Shao family members who didn't violate the rules of the Sacred Hall and had passed the test to enter the Wuchen Sacred Hall. In fact, Shao Chen's idea was very simple. He only wanted to treat everyone equally in the Wuchen Sacred Hall. No matter what identity or family background, as long as they entered the Sacred Palace and the Wuchen Sacred Hall, it didn't matter. All that mattered was strength. Shao Chen didn't want the Wuchen Sacred Hall to become a place that paid attention to family background and identity. Shao Chen was more willing to see that. Therefore, the disciples of the Wuchen Sacred Hall respected strength. This was because only in this way could the Wuchen Sacred Hall and the Sacred Palace develop better and truly stand tall in the North Star boundary. Moreover, Shao Chen was the first chosen of the Sacred Palace and the Wuchen Sacred Hall was the first of the 10 great sacred halls. Therefore, Shao Chen's requirements for the Wuchen Sacred Hall were naturally high. After doing all this, Xiao Chen didn't care about the Xiao family's matters. The Xiao family's patriarch handled it personally. Xiao Chen only wanted result. Of course, there were people who reported the Xiao family's situation to Xiao Chen anytime and anywhere. After this incident, Xiao Chen felt that it was necessary to strengthen the supervision of the Xiao family. Therefore, Xiao Chen also specially divided some of the Wuchen Sacred Hall's forces to closely monitor the Xiao family's every move. After the incident, Xiao Chen's mood also relaxed. It was rare for him to have a meal with Bai Ruiye and Xiao Qingwu. After returning to his residence at night, Xiao Chen and Qin Shuru sat and chatted in the courtyard. At this time, 100 Flower Fairy said with a smile, "Husband, you should take some time out these few days to accompany Tianyue. She came all the way here. I'm afraid it's not good for you to leave her alone." Hearing 100 Flower Fairy's words, Xiao Chen thought about it and felt that it made sense, so he nodded and agreed. Seeing Xiao Chen nod in agreement, the three women looked at each other and smiled. In fact, because Xiao Chen was busy dealing with the Xiao family's affairs these days, Qin Shuru and the other two women had been accompanying Tianyue. After a few days of getting along, the four women had talked a lot. At the same time, Qin Shuru and the others could see that Tianyue really liked Xiao Chen. This was undeniable. However, no matter if it was Tianyue or Xiao Chen, neither of them seemed to have taken this matter seriously. Therefore, their feelings for each other were hazy. As for Xiao Chen and Tianyue, Qin Shuru and the other two girls did not object. Besides, they believed that no one would dislike an outstanding woman like Tianyue. They did not object to Tianyue becoming Xiao Chen's woman, but the three girls did not have the final say in this matter. In any case, let nature take its course. It all depended on whether the two of them were fated to be together. After a silent night, Xiao Chen arrived at Tianyue's residence early in the morning. At this time, Tianyue had already woken up and was cultivating in the courtyard. Seeing Xiao Chen walk over, Tianyue smiled happily and said, "What's wrong? Our great holy son Xiao finally has time today?" I was careless. But now that there's nothing else, I can accompany you." Xiao Chen replied with a smile. For the time being, nothing would happen. In the following days, Xiao Chen could accompany Tianyue to explore the Saint Palace and the Heavenly Chen continent. Hearing Xiao Chen's words, Tianyue was naturally happy. Without hesitation, the two of them immediately left the Saint region and headed to the Heavenly Chen continent. The Saint region had already been explored by Tianyue, so the two of them directly headed to the Heavenly Chen continent. For the next period of time, Xiao Chen accompanied Tianyue, and the two of them quickly set foot in the 5 major regions of the Heavenly Chen continent. After this period of time together, the relationship between the two of them became more intimate. However, this last layer of window paper was not broken. This made Qin Shuru and the other two girls angry and amused. In fact, this matter could not be blamed on Tianyue. It was because Xiao Chen was already experienced. How could Xiao Chen not have any feelings for Tianyue? However, Xiao Chen remembered that back in the Heavenly River continent, he had already made an agreement with Qin Shuru and the other two girls. Therefore, regarding Tianyue's feelings, Xiao Chen could only choose to turn a blind eye and play dumb. Xiao Chen played dumb, and Tianyue was thin-skinned and did not know how to open her mouth, so the matter between the two of them was dragged on. Regarding this, Qin Shuru and the other two girls were both angry and amused. The three girls were very gratified that Xiao Chen could still remember the agreement. But then again, the three girls were not against Tianyue, especially the little girl Gu Lingyao, whose relationship with Tianyue was unbelievably good. Perhaps it was because the two girls were very lively, so as long as there was nothing to do, Gu Lingyao and Tianyue would stay together. They would either play together or cultivate together. With such a good relationship, if Xiao Chen really liked Tianyue, the three girls would naturally not oppose it. After half a month, Xiao Chen and Tianyue were still unclear. On this day, Qin Shuru and the other two girls finally decided to have a good talk with Xiao Chen. In the courtyard, the three girls specially called Xiao Chen over. After taking a seat, Xiao Chen looked at the three girls' incomparably serious expressions. Puzzled, Xiao Chen asked, "What's wrong? Why did you call me over?" Hearing Xiao Chen's words, Flower Fairy smiled unpleasantly and said, "We were almost worried to death because of you. Today, I called our husband over mainly to ask about something." "What is it? Say it." Hearing this, Xiao Chen smiled and said. Seeing this, Flower Fairy did not beat around the bush and asked straightforwardly, "Husband, do you like Tianyue or not? You should be able to feel Tianyue's feelings, right? Did he like Tianyue or not?" He did not expect Flower Fairy to ask such a question. Regarding this, Xiao Chen was stunned, then he smiled helplessly and said, "I can feel it, but did he not have feelings for Tianyue?" Xiao Chen obviously did not. For a woman like Tianyue, no man would not have feelings for her. Not only was she strong, but she also had a lively personality. Her appearance was even better, comparable to Qin Shuru and the other two girls. Therefore, if Xiao Chen said that he did not have feelings for Tianyue, he would definitely be lying. However, he had promised the three girls that he would not look for other women. Therefore, for a moment, Xiao Chen did not know what to say. After all, although Tianyue was good, she was still not his woman. In Xiao Chen's heart, her position could not be compared to Qin Shuru and the other two girls. Seeing that Xiao Chen did not know how to explain, Qin Shuru said softly, "Husband, if you also like Tianyue, we have no objections. Tianyue is a good girl. We like her very much," Qin Shuru said. Hearing this, Xiao Chen's expression changed slightly. His gaze swept across the three girls, and for a moment, he did not know what to say. Begging for collection, begging for monthly votes, begging for recommendations. If you want to talk about Sword Master of 8 Baron with more like-minded people, follow excellent reading literature on WeChat. Talking about life, looking for confidants. Chapter 11:27. With a puzzled look on his face, Xiao Chen didn't understand why the three girls would suddenly say that. One must know that back in the Tianhe continent, the three girls had unanimously decided that he couldn't find other women. It was also because of this that Xiao Chen had avoided other women ever since. This included Tianyue. Despite knowing that Tianyue had feelings for him, Xiao Chen still chose to turn a blind eye and play dumb in order to not make the three girls sad. But now, Qin Shuru actually said that? What exactly were the three girls up to? With doubts in his heart, Xiao Chen also secretly became vigilant, fearing that the three girls were deliberately digging a hole for him to jump into. Seeing Xiao Chen's puzzled expression, Gu Lingyao said snappily, "Brother Xiao Chen, do you like Sister Tianyue or not? How can a man like you be so timid?" Faced with Xiao Chen's hesitation and doubt, Gu Lingyao was obviously unhappy, but in response, Xiao Chen retaliated in his heart. "Timid? Little girl, this young master is just afraid that you're digging a hole for me to jump into." Although this was what he thought, Xiao Chen definitely couldn't say it out loud. Therefore, he could only pretend that he didn't understand anything and asked, What do you mean by this?" He had to figure out what the three girls were up to before making a decision. Upon hearing Xiao Chen's words, the three girls looked at each other with a helpless expression. Why was this man so nervous? Was this still the first chosen of the sacred palace, the idol of countless people, Xiao Chen? Of course, the three girls didn't know that Xiao Chen could ignore the feelings of others and do what he wanted to do outside, but Xiao Chen couldn't do that with them. Xiao Chen didn't want the three girls to be unhappy at all, and he didn't want them to be hurt because of him. It was also because of this that Xiao Chen would rather give up on Tianyue than make the three women sad. Smiling bitterly, Qin Shuru said, "Okay, let's get straight to the point. We just want to tell you that Tianyue is not bad. If you like her, you can accept her. We all agree. Do you understand? Husband. Among the three women, Qin Shuru's personality was the most straightforward, so she spoke bluntly at this time. However, upon hearing this, Xiao Chen said almost instinctively, "What?" He did not expect that the three girls would say something like that. All along, Xiao Chen had been afraid that the three girls would be jealous of him because of his close relationship with Tianyue. Who would have thought that he was worrying for nothing? Not only were the three girls not jealous, but they also supported him to take Tianyue in. This was definitely something that Xiao Chen didn't expect. However, he had already said it. Moreover, the three women didn't look like they were joking. Flower Fairy and Gu Lingyao had faint smiles on their faces. Qin Shuru's expression was still indifferent. Ignoring Xiao Chen's shock, Qin Shuru continued. Husband, you can decide for yourself. Before we called you here, we also talked to Tianyue. If you like her, you can go and find her later. Tianyue will be waiting for you at the residence. As for us, husband, you don't have to worry about us. That's right, that's right. Brother Xiao Chen, we are very good sisters with Sister Tianyue, so we won't be jealous of her. Hearing Qin Shuru's words, Gu Lingyao also chimed in. After the two women finished speaking, Qin Shuru pulled them and prepared to leave. As for what happened next, it was up to Xiao Chen to decide. Before they left, Flower Fairy smiled charmingly. Husband, this is a heaven-sent opportunity. It won't come again if you miss it. Don't regret it when the time comes. The three women did as they were told, leaving Xiao Chen sitting alone in the courtyard. After a while, Xiao Chen revealed a bitter smile. It turned out that the three of them had already discussed this beforehand. To think that he had been thinking too much and worrying about this and that. The three women didn't dislike Tianyue and agreed to accept her. However, what about Xiao Chen's decision? In fact, there was nothing to hesitate about. After being together for such a long time, Xiao Chen and Tianyue's feelings for each other had slowly taken root in their hearts. It wasn't impossible for Xiao Chen to give up on Tianyue, but it was certain that he wouldn't feel good about it. It wasn't that he hadn't thought about how he would feel if Tianyue snuggled up in another man's arms one day. The answer was very certain. It would definitely feel bad, absolutely bad. Xiao Chen got up and stretched. Because of Qin Shuru and the other two women's words, the knot in Xiao Chen's heart was completely untied. Since the three women didn't object, how could Xiao Chen let go of such a peerless beauty like Tianyue? Moreover, the two of them had feelings for each other. Xiao Chen liked Tianyue and Tianyue liked Xiao Chen. Xiao Chen strode towards Tianyue's residence. Just as Qin Shuru said, Tianyue was indeed waiting for him there. Seeing Xiao Chen striding towards her, Tianyue's face turned red and her heart was incomparably nervous. On the other hand, Xiao Chen looked at the shy Tianyue. This was the first time Xiao Chen saw such an expression on Tianyue's face. Stepping in front of Tianyue, Xiao Chen directly said, "Have you talked to Shui Rou and the others?" "Yes, I've talked to them." Tianyue lowered her head and replied in an extremely soft voice. She didn't dare to look directly at Xiao Chen. At this moment, Tianyue didn't look like the first holy maiden of the 9 heavens at all. She was exactly the same as those ordinary girls who were unable to extricate themselves from the river of love. Facing such a Tianyue, Xiao Chen didn't say anything else. He grabbed Tianyue's wrist and pulled her into his arms domineeringly. Then, he lowered his head and kissed her fiercely. She didn't expect Xiao Chen to be so direct. Her mind instantly went blank and she forgot to struggle. Or rather, Tianyue instinctively didn't want to struggle. After talking with Qin Shuru and the others, Tianyue also knew about her feelings for Xiao Chen. To be honest, Tianyue herself didn't know when she started to have feelings for Xiao Chen. However, all of this wasn't important at this moment. After a long time, Xiao Chen finally let go of Tianyue. However, at this moment, Tianyue was already leaning against Xiao Chen's chest. Lowering his head to look at the beautiful woman, Xiao Chen said softly, "From now on, you won't be able to run away. Although I, Xiao Chen, have more than one woman by my side, I will do my best to treat all of you well." Since he had made up his mind to not let Tianyue leave his side, Xiao Chen naturally didn't have any more misgivings. Hearing this, Tianyue blushed and nodded. She didn't say anything. Who would have thought that the first holy maiden of the 9 heavens would be nestled in Xiao Chen's arms? Moreover, Xiao Chen had also taken down the women in the hearts of all the heavenly clans. If this news were to spread to the heavenly clans, Xiao Chen would probably become the public enemy of all the men in the heavenly clans. Begging for collection, begging for monthly votes, begging for recommendations. Chapter 11:28. After receiving Qin Shuru and the other 2 women's agreement to accept Tianyue, Xiao Chen's mood was naturally incomparably happy. Xiao Chen was not a lustful person, nor was he a person who could not move when he saw a beautiful woman. Compared to the other saints and saintesses, Xiao Chen did not have many women, only 4 in total. Moreover, Xiao Chen could be said to be extremely doting on Qin Shuru and the other 2 women, which was something that others could not do. That night, Xiao Chen directly stayed at Tianyue's place. Although Tianyue was incomparably shy, she did not refuse. Since she had already fallen in love with this man, many things were logical. The next day, the 2 of them did not get up until the sun was high in the sky. After washing up, Xiao Chen first took Tianyue to see Bai Ruiyue and Xiao Qing. The 2 elders did not seem to be surprised by the matter between Tianyue and Xiao Chen. At first, Xiao Chen was still a little puzzled, but he quickly thought that it was very likely that Qin Shuru and the other 2 women had told the 2 elders about this matter in advance. Therefore, the 2 elders were already mentally prepared. It seemed that the 3 of them had already thought about it. Regarding this, Xiao Chen was both helpless and secretly happy. If it were not for Qin Shuru and the other 2 women's agreement, Xiao Chen and Tianyue probably would not have been together. At least, Xiao Chen would not have accepted Tianyue. After greeting the 2 elders were also very satisfied with Tianyue. Bai Ruiyue even chatted with this new daughter-in-law enthusiastically. Not long after Xiao Chen and Tianyue arrived, Qin Shuru and the other 2 women also arrived. The group of people had lunch at the 2 elders' place before leaving. After returning to their residence, the 3 women knew that Xiao Chen must have accepted Tianyue, so they did not have any concerns about Tianyue. In addition, the 4 women had been getting along quite well before. Although Tianyue was still a little nervous at first, she soon let go of her worries. The 4 women chattered non-stop. Seeing this, Xiao Chen stood up and said, "I'm going to cultivate." There was no point in staying here at all, so Xiao Chen planned to cultivate. However, he was stopped by 100-Flower Fairy. "Husband, wait a moment." She stopped Xiao Chen and then asked Xiao Chen to sit beside her. At this time, the 4 women's expressions became very serious. In the end, it was still 100-Flower Fairy spoke. "Husband, although you have tea on you this time, the agreement from before is still valid. Without our consent, you can't find other women." Was there any woman who could compare to the 4 women in front of the 4 women? To be honest, there was no other woman in the entire North. Who else in the entire North, who could compare to the 4 women in front of the 4 women before him? Why did he have to go out and pick wild flowers instead of the delicate flowers at home? Xiao Chen wasn't that stupid. Therefore, he naturally didn't have any objections to the agreement. Moreover, he really had to thank Qin Shuru and the other 2 girls for being magnanimous enough to marry Tianyue this time. He agreed without any hesitation. Seeing this, the 4 women were very satisfied with Xiao Chen's attitude. After that, they let Xiao Chen go. As for the 4 women, they naturally had endless things to talk about. Tianyue had just entered the family, so everyone naturally needed to get to know each other. The addition of Tianyu did not change the family. It only became livelier. The original 3 women had now become 4. However, the relationship between the 4 women was still very good. Xiao Chen was naturally very happy about the harmony in his own backyard. His women could be as close as sisters. This saved Xiao Chen a lot of trouble. Therefore, in the following period of time, because there was nothing much to do, Xiao Chen wholeheartedly devoted himself to cultivation. In his spare time, he would accompany the 4 women and his parent. If not, he would also drink with Chen Ling and Chen Yu. They also knew that Xiao Chen had subdued Tianyu. Regarding this matter, Chen Yu and his friends all prostrated themselves in admiration. He could even subdue the first holy maiden of 9th heaven. Xiao Chen's methods were indeed brilliant. The days were peaceful and fulfilling. However, this peace obviously could not last long. A month later, in the Night Ghost Pavilion, Mo Xie, who had gone to the 18 Ghost Domains to train, finally returned from the 18 Ghost Domains. Although he looked very miserable, after narrowly escaping death, Mo Xie's aura had become even more powerful. At the same time, the look in his eyes had become even sharper. At this moment, Mo Xie was like a venomous snake that no one dared to underestimate. Mo Xie's success in breaking through the 18 Ghost Domains caused a huge uproar in the Night Ghost Pavilion. At the same time, Mo Xie's reputation as the first holy son of the Night Ghost Pavilion was raised to the limit. In the entire history of the Night Ghost Pavilion, there were definitely not many people who had been able to break through the 18 Ghost Domains. Now that Mo Xie had done so, countless disciples of the Night Ghost Pavilion naturally admired him. First, the Blood Moon Great Sovereign personally summoned Mo Xie. Seeing that Mo Xie had changed a lot compared to before, the Blood Moon Great Sovereign smiled with satisfaction. Not bad. After narrowly escaping death, I've been reborn. The corners of Mo Xie's mouth curled into a cold smile when he heard the Blood Moon Great Sovereign's words. Yes, this time I won't be defeated again. Xiao Chen, Sacred Palace, just you wait. He had suffered a lot in the 18 Ghost Domains and had almost lost his life several times. However, Mo Xie had persevered time and time again in order to defeat Xiao Chen and avenge the resentment in his heart. Being defeated by Xiao Chen twice was really hard for the extremely proud Mo Xie to accept. That was why he insisted on breaking through the 18 levels of the Ghost Realm. Now, he had successfully broken through the 18 levels of the Ghost Realm. After only 3 days of recuperation, Mo Xie could not wait to take revenge. He wanted to take revenge on Xiao Chen and the Sacred Palace. He wanted to personally cut off Xiao Chen's head. The Night Ghost Pavilion began to stir again because of Mo Xie's return. Of course, Xiao Chen was unaware of all this and the Sacred Palace had not received any news. However, the Sacred Palace did not slack off during this period of time. Not only were all kinds of talismans and pills being produced, but the teleportation formations were also completed one after another. Even the Sacred Palace, the Power King sect, the Supreme God sect and 9 heavens had constructed teleportation formations between the 4 great sections. With so many cross-boundary teleportation formations, they formed a tight network. In this way, the Sacred Palace could provide immediate support in the event of an emergency. They did not need to use spaceships to travel back and forth, which took a long time. Xiao Chen naturally did not need to worry about the construction of the cross-boundary teleportation formations. Xiao Chen only needed to focus on his cultivation. Not only Xiao Chen, but Qin Shuru, the 4 girls, Chen Ling, Long Qing, and all the Sacred Palace disciples were also cultivating with all their might. Begging for your collection, begging for monthly votes, begging for recommendations. Chapter 11:29. Inside the Sacred Palace, everyone was doing their best to improve their strength. In the outside world, the friction between the two alliances was constantly escalating. But for now, the overall situation was still under control. Although the people of the two alliances often fought, and there were often casualties, to put it bluntly, both sides had not shown their true abilities. They were just testing each other's strength. Some important resources, such as spirit veins, were fought over. Today, one side took the other's spirit veins, and the other side took them back the next day. Such small-scale battles happened almost every day in the North Star boundary. Of course, these things were actually irrelevant. What would really decide the outcome was the real battle that would break out after both sides had made their preparations. The victory or defeat at that time would be the most crucial factor that would determine the outcome. It was also because everyone was still in the preparation stage that the various holy sons, saints, and quasi-sages didn't make a move. At most, they only sent out some quasi-holy sons. For example, Guduwia and Huangfu-ao had been sent to guard spirit veins in other places. They were locked in a fierce battle with the Night Ghost Pavilion and the other two sections. Guduwia and Huangfu-ao had already entered the battlefield. Shao Chen was not worried or envious because it was not the time for the chosen to enter the battlefield. Therefore, the most important thing was to seize this last opportunity to improve their strength. While Shao Chen was still cultivating day after day, on an unknown continent, a jet-black starship slowly descended. On the hull of the starship there were 3 large words, Night Ghost Pavilion. This unknown continent was so small that it couldn't even be called a continent. It was only the size of a region of the heavenly Chun continent. Moreover, there weren't any precious resources on this continent. The only thing special about this continent was that it was inhabited by humans. That was all. A continent with no meaning, no resources, and no experts had attracted the starship of the Night Ghost Pavilion. Moreover, the one leading the starship was the first chosen of the Night Ghost Pavilion, Mo-Xia. The spaceship landed, and Mo-Xia led a group of powerful cultivators from the Night Ghost Pavilion to the deck. Looking down at the barren land below, a holy son of the Night Ghost Pavilion standing beside Mo-Xia asked curiously, "Senior brother, what are we doing here?" Even the others did not know why Mo-Xia had come to this continent. Hearing this, Mo-Xia's eyes flashed with extreme killing intent. He said in a matter-of-fact tone, "It's nothing. I'm just giving Shao Chen a small gift. Tell him that I, Mo-Xia, am here." A small gift for Shao Chen? They really didn't know what kind of gift there was on this barren continent. But soon everyone knew. It was because Mo-Xia had given the order to slaughter. He wanted the powerful cultivators of the Night Ghost Pavilion to raze the entire continent to the ground and kill every single human on the continent, not leaving a single one alive. Once the order to kill was given, the cultivators of the Night Ghost Pavilion did not hesitate, nor did they feel any pressure. To the Night Ghost Pavilion, massacring humans was no different from slaughtering chickens. Actually, the North Star realm was like this. Those who did not belong to the same race would definitely have a different heart. They would not show any mercy or pity when slaughtering other races. In an instant, this unknown continent turned into hell. Night Ghost Pavilion cultivators could be seen crazily slaughtering human cultivators everywhere. It didn't matter if they had a cultivation base, whether they were male or female, young or old, as long as they were seen, they would die. Shrill screams resounded across the entire continent, and news of the massacre quickly reached the ears of the sacred palace. They had slaughtered an entire continent. Although this continent was very small, there were at least 10 million humans living on it. 10 million lives had been taken just like that. Furthermore, after the massacre, Mo-Xia wrote a message in the largest city on this continent. "Shao Chen, this is a gift from this holy son to you. Don't worry, as long as this holy son is alive, I will kill every single human in the North Star realm." Mo-Xia's message was also sent back to the sacred palace and into Shao Chen's ears. In the dustless sacred palace's main hall, Xiao Chen sat on the main seat and listened to an elder's report. Xiao Chen's face was gloomy, and killing intent surged from his body as he shouted angrily. Emosia, you want to play? Fine, I'll play with you. Men, do your best to find Emosia's whereabouts. I must kill this bastard with my own hands. Emosia's actions enraged Xiao Chen, the sacred palace, and the entire human race in the North Star realm. At the same time, the other races also paled at the mention of this bloody massacre. Massacring an entire continent wasn't something that had never happened in the history of the North Star realm. However, that was something that happened in the ancient times. At least in the past tens of thousands of years, such a massacre of an entire continent had never happened in the North Star realm. But now, Emosia had done it. The various races' cultivators who had been to the continent found it difficult to accept the scene in front of them when they arrived at the massacred continent. What was a mountain of corpses and a sea of blood? It could be said that it was hell. No, hell might be better than this. Corpses were everywhere on the entire continent. No matter where one went, they would see corpses. The mountains, rivers, and lakes were dyed red with blood. The once prosperous continent was now lifeless. Unlike the other races, the sacred palace sent people to the continent as soon as they received the news. However, because the continent did not have a transboundary teleportation array, they could only take a starship. Xiao Chen led Qin Shuru and the other girls, Chen Yu, the Qing Emperor, and another chosen, by Yi, to the unknown continent. The sacred palace and many other human forces collected the corpses of those who had died unjustly on the continent and buried them. When Xiao Chen and the others arrived, they were stunned when they saw the hellish scene. In addition to the shock, an indescribable anger continued to rise in their hearts. They did not know these dead people, but they were of the same race and bloodline. From the day they were born, they shared the same name, the human race. Now, how could Xiao Chen and the others not be angry when they saw their own race being slaughtered like pigs and dogs by foreign races? Their eyes were red, and they could not hide the murderous intent in their eyes. Xiao Chen said coldly to an elder of the Wuchen sacred hall beside him, "Where is the nearest continent of the Ghost Clan? Begging for collection, begging for monthly votes, begging for recommendations." Chapter 1130. To the entire human race of the North Star world, this continent that didn't even have a name wasn't even worth mentioning, and the humans living on it were like a drop in the ocean compared to the entire human race. To put it bluntly, they wouldn't affect the human race of the North Star world in the slightest, but things clearly couldn't be viewed that way. These people were all living beings, and they were his own kind. Looking at the corpses that littered the entire continent, Xiao Chen only felt a stifling panic in his heart. In truth, Xiao Chen had already felt the same way back when Vast Peak City was massacred on the 100mo continent, but it was clear that the scene in Vast Peak City wasn't as shocking as the scene in front of him. The entire continent had been massacred. What kind of cruel method was this? After hearing Xiao Chen's cold shout, the dustless sacred hall elder beside him was stunned for a moment before he replied truthfully, reporting to the chosen, "The nearest ghost continent is about 3 days away from here. It's called the Hua Gui continent." The Hua Gui continent. As the elder's voice fell, the Qing emperor asked hesitantly, "Xiao Chen, you can't be thinking of..." The Qing emperor had clearly guessed Xiao Chen's thoughts, and Xiao Chen didn't hide it. Before the Qing emperor could finish, Xiao Chen interrupted him. "That's right, I'm going to massacre the Hua Gui continent. Since Emosia can massacre the human race, why can't I massacre the ghost race?" Emosia had massacred a continent of the human race, so Xiao Chen was going to massacre a continent of the ghost race. Upon hearing Xiao Chen's words, the surrounding sacred palace experts couldn't help but suck in a breath of cold air. Massacring a continent wasn't as simple as killing a few people, but tens of millions or even hundreds of millions of lives. But when Xiao Chen said this, no one felt that he was joking, and that he was really going to do it. Xiao Chen's decision shocked everyone. A moment later, Bai Yi said, "Senior brother Xiao, isn't massacring a continent a little too cruel?" Everyone felt that Xiao Chen's actions were a little cruel. Xiao Chen didn't immediately answer Bai Yi's question. He looked into the distance, and as far as his eyes could see, human cultivators were collecting corpses. The corpses were thrown into deep pits and buried. There were too many corpses, so it was naturally impossible to give everyone their own grave, so they had to bury them. After looking at the scene before him for a while, Xiao Chen said slowly, "That's right. When I was young, my wish was to become a powerhouse and stand above the heavens and earth. The heavens and earth are so big that I can go anywhere. For this wish, I have always been working hard. In the process of pursuing my dream, I slowly grew stronger. I grew from the young master of a small clan in the Eastern Sun region to the current first chosen of the sacred palace. My former enemies and friends have all been left far behind me. I grew stronger and stronger, but at the same time, I slowly realized that the responsibility on my shoulders grew heavier and heavier. Not only for the sacred palace, but also because of my identity as a human. Humans have to shoulder responsibilities if they have the ability. In the North Star boundary, the human race is weak. During this period of time, I've been thinking about what I can do and what I want to do with my life. Now I understand." Xiao Chen paused and then turned around. His gaze swept past Chen Yu, the Qing Emperor, Bai Yi and the others. Then, a look of determination burst out from his eyes as he said firmly, word by word. "As a human, I want to protect the human race. I want to protect all of the human race from foreign invasions. With the 3-foot-long sword in my hand, I want to protect the billions of lives of the human race. I vow to make the human race the strongest race in the world." Chen Yu and the others were stunned by Xiao Chen's words. Their blood was boiling because of what Xiao Chen had just said. Xiao Chen had grown up. As the first chosen of the sacred palace, Xiao Chen wanted to protect the human race and make the human race stronger. Although he didn't know if he could do it, he had to have a goal in life. Xiao Chen used to want to become an expert, but now Xiao Chen wanted to protect the entire human race. Just as Xiao Chen said, "With the 3-foot-long sword in my hand, I want to protect the billions of lives of the human race." Both were Xiao Chen's lifelong wishes. At the same time, they didn't conflict with each other. Because if he wanted to protect the human race, he naturally needed to have absolute strength. Because of Xiao Chen's words, everyone was stunned. After a long while, Chen Yu said, putting away his usual frivolous attitude. At this moment, Chen Yu looked at Xiao Chen with eyes full of shock and admiration. "With the 3-foot-long sword in my hand, I want to protect the billions of lives of the human race. Who? Senior brother is righteous. This junior brother is willing to follow you to the death." This was the first time Chen Yu had called Xiao Chen senior brother. Following Chen Yu's words, the Qing Emperor and Bai Yi beside him also said, "Senior brother is righteous. This junior brother is willing to follow you to the death." The Qing Emperor was a very proud person, but at this moment, he called Chen Yu senior brother from the bottom of his heart. The 3 chosen felt their blood boil because of Xiao Chen's words, let alone the others present. Many people's eyes were already red as they shouted with all their might. "Chosen one is righteous. We are willing to follow you to the death." Being born as a human meant to protect the human race, to make the human race stronger, to the point that no other race would dare to look down on us, to the point that no other race would dare to bully us, to the point that all the other races would bow down to us. Facing the cheers of the crowd, Xiao Chen's expression didn't change. If he wanted to achieve his goal, there was still a long way to go. However, Xiao Chen believed that one day, the human race would definitely stand at the top of this world, surpassing the 100 races, and truly become the strongest race in this world. It was just like the 100 races evaluation of the human race. The human race was born weak. They didn't have a terrifying bloodline power, nor did they have those innate divine abilities. It could be said that the human race was born as a blank piece of paper. They didn't know anything. Even if they were thrown into the wild beasts could easily tear apart a human child. The human race was a race that had been forgotten by the heavens. This was the 100 races evaluation of the human race. But so what? The human race didn't bow down. They were born weak, but so what? With their own efforts, the human race still stood in this world and didn't go extinct. The human race was the most stubborn race. They struggled to survive in the muddy water in order to find their own place in this world. Wasn't such a weak but stubborn race worthy of respect? Shao Chun was born as a human and was proud. It was also because of this pride in his heart that Shao Chun wanted to make the human race stronger. For this, he wouldn't hesitate even if he had to sacrifice his entire life. Begging for collection, begging for monthly votes, begging for recommendations. Chapter 1131. The human race was born weak, and in this world where the strong preyed on the weak, they were undoubtedly a tempting piece of meat that every other race wanted to take a bite out of. However, under the bloody battles of the ancestors of the human race had been able to fend off one ferocious enemy after another, resolving the racial disparity time and time again. Now, as a member of the human race, Shao Chun also wanted to do something for his own race. Although he did not know how far he could go, he wanted to give it a try. He wanted to avenge the people who had died unjustly on this continent, and at the same time, he wanted to tell the other races in the North Star world that the human race wasn't a pushover that anyone could bully at will. If you dare to slaughter my people, then I'll destroy your entire race. After forcefully suppressing his emotions, Shao Chun looked at everyone present and said, "Get ready. We'll head to the Huagui continent immediately." In the beginning, everyone had objected to Shao Chun's plan to slaughter the entire Huagui continent, but after hearing what he'd said earlier, no one dared to object anymore. Leading more than 100 sacred palace experts, Shao Chun and the others headed for the Huagui continent on the same day. Amongst these 100-plus sacred palace experts, there were 5 saint venerables and over 10 half-saint elders. Coupled with the other Tao Emperor and Tao King realm experts, it was absolutely easy for them to annihilate the Ghostview continent. After all, there weren't any powerful factions on the Huagui continent. There was only a single saint sect with only a single saint realm expert. As a result, it wouldn't be difficult for Shao Chun's group to destroy the Huagui continent. This time, it was purely for revenge. There was no other objective. Mo Xie had slaughtered a human continent, and Shao Chun had slaughtered a ghost continent. The starship rose into the air and quickly charged into the endless starry sky. While Shao Chun's group was heading towards the Huagui continent, Mo Xie was also sailing through the starry sky. He was currently sitting in the ship and drinking fine wine. Because he had slaughtered a continent of the human race, Mo Xie had been in a good mood during this period of time. He had a faint smile on his face. At the same time, the Night Ghost Pavilion chosen beside Mo Xie also smiled and said, "Senior brother Mo Xie, how do you think Shao Chun is feeling right now? No matter how he feels, this is just a greeting gift. Soon, I'll make him beg for death." Mo Xie sneered. Massacring a human continent was just the beginning. Mo Xie still had follow-up actions to take. Mo Xie's starship was currently heading towards the direction of the Sky River continent. Mo Xie's goal. Mo Xie was still thinking about taking revenge on Shao Chun, but he didn't expect Shao Chun's revenge to come so quickly and suddenly. Of course, Mo Xie still didn't know that Shao Chun was leading a group of people to the Huagui continent. They only needed 3 days to reach the Huagui continent. The starship shuttled through the endless starry sky. After 3 days, Shao Chun's group finally landed on the Huagui continent. It was a small continent, but it was inhabited by ghost clan members. When Xiao Chen's starship slowly landed, it immediately attracted the attention of many ghost clan members. Of course, Xiao Chen had no intention of hiding. He came here to kill. He didn't have any other purpose, so there was no need for him to hide his whereabouts. The starship slowly descended with the words "Sacred Palace" emblazoned on its hull. The place where Xiao Chen and the others had landed was not far from a city. At that moment, many of the ghosts in the city had noticed them. Of course, when they saw the words "Sacred Palace" emblazoned on the hull of the starship, their expressions changed drastically. After a few days, the news that the first holy son of the Night Ghost Pavilion had massacred a human continent had spread throughout the North Star realm. The Huagui continent was only 3 days away from the massacred human continent, so they naturally heard the news. The Sacred Palace's starship suddenly landed on the Huagui continent at such a time. No one knew what this meant, but it was most likely nothing good. As the Sacred Palace's starship slowly landed, many ghost clan members in the city began to discuss. Sacred Palace, the sacred palace of the human race. What are they doing here? I don't know, but I have a feeling that it's not something good. Hurry up and inform the city lord. Soon, the city lord of the city also received the news and came to the city walls. He looked at the Sacred Palace starship that had landed safely outside the city. The city lord was only at the Tao King stage. He looked at the Sacred Palace starship with a grave expression and immediately shouted to the people beside him, "Hurry up and inform the Huagui sect." The Huagui sect was the only saint sect on the Huagui continent. Now that the Sacred Palace had descended, the Huagui sect was the only sect that could resist the Sacred Palace for a short period of time. The city lord kept praying in his heart. He hoped that the Sacred Palace's people weren't too strong and that the Huagui sect would be able to hold them off. As long as they could hold on until the Night Ghost Pavilion's reinforcements arrived, they would be safe. However, the city lord's prayers were clearly useless. Xiao Chen's group soon arrived on the deck of the starship and looked at the city before them. With Xiao Chen's eyesight, he naturally saw the ghost clan cultivators on the city walls who were trembling in fear and constantly looking around. There was no trace of surprise in his eyes, only dense killing intent. In Xiao Chen's eyes, these ghost clan cultivators weren't worth pitying because they wouldn't pity the human race. It was the same principle. Slaughter the Huagui continent. I want not a single blade of grass to grow on the Huagui continent. Xiao Chen's voice was icy cold as he said indifferently. As soon as Xiao Chen finished speaking, the Sacred Palace experts soared into the sky and quickly spread out. The 2 Tao emperors also flew towards the city. 2 Tao emperor enforcers were more than enough to destroy the city. As for the others, they naturally headed elsewhere. The city lord's expression changed when he saw the people from the Sacred Palace soar into the sky, especially when he saw Xiao Chen, Chen Yu, the Qing Emperor, and Bai Yi dressed in the Sacred Palace chosen's robes. His face instantly turned ashen, but he quickly came back to his senses and turned to the many ghosts in the city and shouted at them, "Let's go! Revenge, this is the Sacred Palace's revenge. They want to slaughter the entire Huagui continent. Damn it, run, run! The Sacred Palace is here for revenge. Run, run as far as you can. Seeking collection, seeking monthly votes, seeking recommendations." Chapter 1132. Run. The Sacred Palace is here for revenge. The city lord roared angrily. He had been praying that the Sacred Palace wouldn't be too strong, but reality had undoubtedly given him a resounding slap to the face. Putting aside the 5 Saint Venerables and the dozen or so half-saint elders, just the appearance of Xiao Chen, Chen Yu, and the other chosens was enough to explain everything. Moreover, the fierce killing intent that soared into the sky from the Sacred Palace experts was even more chilling. Emosia had just massacred a human continent, and the sacred palace had descended on the Huagui continent a few days later. The city lord was no fool. How could he not know the sacred palace's objective? He had never imagined that the sacred palace's revenge would come so quickly and directly. However, even though the ghosts in the city had reacted as soon as possible, they were still finished. The two Dao Emperor Realm overseers charged into the city and attacked without any explanation. Terrifying attacks rained down from the sky, and in an instant, the city was filled with miserable screams. On the city walls, the city lord watched as the ghosts in the city died in droves. Although the city wasn't a large one, and there were only 100,000 ghosts living in the city, this scene still shocked him greatly. The city lord roared in horror as he faced the hellish scene without holding back at all. Human race, sacred palace, how could you do such an infuriating thing? You actually massacred an entire city. You're simply demons. The city lord roared with bloodshot eyes as he watched the ghosts in his city being slaughtered and their miserable screams ringing out incessantly. However, as soon as he finished speaking, an indifferent voice sounded. Demons? I'm afraid you ghosts don't have the right to say that. Don't forget that your first chosen massacred an entire human continent. The city lord was stunned by the sudden voice. He quickly turned around and saw that Xiao Chen was already standing in front of him. Qin Shuru, Chen Yu, the Qing Emperor, and Bai Yi were behind him. He didn't sense Xiao Chen's approach at all. After seeing Xiao Chen at such a close distance, he quickly recognized Xiao Chen's identity. As the first holy son of the sacred palace, Xiao Chen's appearance was no longer a secret in the North Star boundary. Many people of status had seen Xiao Chen's portrait before. The shocked expression on his face became even more horrified. He looked at Xiao Chen and said subconsciously, "You, Xiao Chen, why are you here?" The appearance of the sacred palace's first chosen on the tiny Cathay Ghost continent stunned the city lord. Xiao Chen didn't pay attention to the city lord's stunned expression. He smiled coldly and said, "I'm only here to give your ghost clan a gift in return. Emosia slaughtered a continent of my human clan, so I'll slaughter a continent of your ghost clan." Then, without waiting for the city lord to reply, Xiao Chen directly slapped out with his palm and killed the city lord with a single slap. With only a Dao King cultivation, the city lord naturally couldn't resist Xiao Chen at all. Xiao Chen killed the city lord with his own hands. He then looked at the city that was in ruins and said calmly, "Let's go to the Huagui sect." Xiao Chen's group rose into the air and headed straight for the Cathay Ghost sect. Of course, there were also two Sacred Palace Saint Sovereigns in addition to Xiao Chen's group. The Cathay Ghost sect was a saint sect. Although they only had one saint expert, they couldn't be careless. Two Sacred Palace Saint Sovereigns were enough to kill a saint expert. As for the others, Xiao Chen's group naturally didn't fear them. Including Tian Yu and Xiao Chen's group, there were a total of 5 chosens. In addition, Qin Shuru and the other 2 girls weren't weak either. This force was enough to destroy the Cathay Ghost sect. The Sacred Palace's revenge came suddenly and caught everyone off guard. With the Sacred Palace's group attacking, terror frantically spread in all directions with the city as the center. Just like what Emosia and the others had done before, the Sacred Palace experts killed everyone they saw along the way. Regardless of whether they had cultivation or not, whether they were male or female, old or young, they were all killed on the spot. Blood gradually spread across the Cathay Ghost continent. Miserable screams rose and fell, and the smell of blood in the air grew thicker and thicker. A few days ago, when they heard that the Ghost Clan's first holy son, Emosia, had massacred the human clan, they were all extremely excited and beaming with joy. However, who would have thought that they would encounter the same situation in just a few days? Only now did the ghost race personally experience the fear and helplessness of the human race being massacred. In the face of the merciless Sacred Palace experts, The ghost race had no ability to resist at all. The only thing they could do was wait for death to descend in terror. Cities were slaughtered one after another, and the ghosts were killed one after another, one after another. Fear spread like a plague. Soon, the Cathay Ghost sect in the east of the Cathay Ghost continent finally received the news. At this moment, in the main hall of the Hua Gui sect, the sect leader of the Hua Gui sect, who was also the only saint in the Hua Gui sect, sat on the main seat. Below him, more than 10 elders of the Hua Gui sect stood trembling. Their faces were grave and filled with fear. The Cathay Ghost sect master had heard that the sacred palace had begun to massacre the ghost race. Nearly a third of the Cathay Ghost continent had been turned into a wasteland, and all the ghost race living there had been killed. It had been less than a day since the sacred palace had arrived on the Cathay Ghost continent. The Cathay Ghost sect master looked at the many elders below him and said in a deep voice, "The sacred palace is definitely here for revenge. What should we do? It will take time for the Night Ghost Pavilion's reinforcements to arrive." Sect Master, the only thing we can do now is to send the news back to the Night Ghost Pavilion and activate the sect protection formation. We can only hope that we can hold on until the Night Ghost Pavilion's reinforcements arrive. An elder stepped forward and said, "The Cathay Ghost sect wanted to deal with the sacred palace with their current strength. Therefore, the only thing they could do now was to hold on and wait for reinforcements. Even so, no one present had the slightest confidence that they could hold on until the Night Ghost Pavilion's reinforcements arrived. However, there was no other choice. This was the only choice and also the best choice." Hearing the elder's words, the sect leader of the Ghost Hua sect sighed with an ashen face. "That's all we can do. Damn it, how could the sacred palace's revenge come so quickly? Do they really dare to massacre the entire Cathay Ghost continent? Aren't they afraid of being pointed at by the North Star Domain's 100 tribes and cursed by everyone? Massacring an entire continent was an extremely cruel thing to do. However, the ghost race was the one who did it first. The sacred palace was only taking revenge, so it was understandable. Moreover, would Shao Qin care about being pointed at by the 100 tribes and cursed by everyone? Begging for collection, begging for monthly votes, begging for recommendations. Chapter 1133. Condemned by 100 races and cursed by thousands? Would Shao Qin care? Obviously not. Since the ghost race could massacre an entire continent, the human race could do the same. They would give them a taste of their own medicine. Everyone in the Ghost Hua sect was in a state of panic. The sect protecting formation had been activated and the news had reached the Night Ghost Pavilion. When the Night Ghost Pavilion received the news that the sacred palace had descended on the Ghost Hua continent, the entire Night Ghost Pavilion was shocked. What was the sacred palace trying to do? This went without saying. But where did the sacred palace and the human race get the guts to massacre an entire continent of the ghost race? Damn it, sacred palace, how dare you massacre an entire continent of the ghost race? The human race is despicable. They actually attacked the ghost race, who had no power to fight back. They deserve to die, they deserve to die. Many Night Ghost Pavilion disciples cursed angrily, but they had never thought about why the sacred palace and the human race would do this. Perhaps in the hearts of these Night Ghost Pavilion disciples, the human race was still the same weak race that they had been in the past. They were still the race that could only be beaten up without fighting back. However, they clearly did not expect that the situation was completely different now. The human race was no longer a race that could be bullied as they wished. Compared to the crazy curses of the ordinary disciples, the upper echelons of the Night Ghost Pavilion were much calmer. As the upper echelons of the Night Ghost Pavilion, they were not stupid and knew very well why the sacred palace had done this. It could be said that the sacred palace's actions this time were completely forced by the Night Ghost Pavilion. This was the bitter fruit of the Night Ghost Pavilion's own actions. Several saints of the Night Ghost Pavilion stood respectfully in front of Blood Moon Grand Venerable. Her beautiful face was expressionless as she asked the saints calmly. Blood Moon Grand Venerable didn't show any joy or sadness on her face. If we set off immediately, will we be able to save the Ghost Hua sect? As for the other places in the Ghost Hua continent, the Blood Moon Grand Sovereign knew that there was no way to save them. There was not enough time. However, the Ghost Hua sect had the sect-protecting Grand Formation and could hold on for a while. Therefore, the Blood Moon Grand Sovereign's current goal was to save the Ghost Hua sect. However, after hearing her words, one of the saints hesitated for a moment before replying, "I'm afraid that it will be very difficult. Even though the Ghost Hua sect has the sect-protecting formation, the Sacred Palace is attacking in a towering rage and the leader is the Sacred Palace's first chosen, Shao Chen. I'm afraid that the Ghost Hua sect's sect-protecting formation alone will not be able to stop the Sacred Palace. Furthermore, the Ghost Hua sect does not have a transboundary transportation formation from the Night Ghost Pavilion to the Ghost Hua sect. Even if we use the fastest starship, it will take at least 8 days to reach the Ghost Hua sect. By then, the Ghost Hua sect will have become a land of death. There was no way to save the Ghost Hua continent. Even the Ghost Hua sect would not be able to do anything. After hearing that the leader was the Sacred Palace's first chosen, Shao Chen, a trace of emotion finally appeared on the Blood Moon Grand Sovereign's face. A trace of anger flashed across his eyes as he spoke through gritted teeth. Shao Chen, it's that Shao Chen again. Damn it, if this person is not eliminated, the Night Ghost Pavilion will not be able to eat or sleep in peace. There was no need to mention his hatred for Shao Chen. Almost every time the Night Ghost Pavilion suffered, it was Shao Chen who caused it. This time, Shao Chen had led a team to destroy the Ghost Hua continent. This caused the Blood Moon Grand Sovereign's hatred to reach a peak. With a cold shout, the Blood Moon Grand Sovereign looked coldly at the Night Ghost Pavilion saints in front of him. Regardless of whether you can save them or not, you should all set off now. It was definitely too late to save them, but the Ghost Hua continent had been massacred. As a quasi-saint sect of the ghost race, the Night Ghost Pavilion naturally had to express their stance. Therefore, it was certain that they would send people over. To put it bluntly, sending these people over to the Ghost Hua continent was actually to deal with them, just like what the Sacred Palace had done. The Night Ghost Pavilion reacted immediately, but it was still too late. At this time, outside the Ghost Hua sect on the Ghost Hua continent, Shao Chen and the others had already arrived. Standing in the air and looking at the Ghost Hua sect that was tightly protected by a formation, Shao Chen's face was full of anger. At the same time, within the formation, the Ghost Hua sect master and a group of elders looked at Shao Chen in the sky with unconcealable fear in their eyes. However, this was a matter of life and death, so the Ghost Hua sect master still braced himself and said to Shao Chen, "Everyone from the Sacred Palace, aren't you afraid that you will be condemned by the 100 clans for massacring the ghost race that had no power to fight back? It's always the war between the two races, but you can't do such a cruel thing." He tried to use righteousness to pressure Shao Chen, but after hearing his words, Shao Chen laughed coldly. "What a joke! Do you ghost race members all have amnesia? Have you forgotten what the first holy son of your ghost race did a few days ago? Does that mean that only the officials are allowed to set fires and the common people are not allowed to light lamps? 2 days ago, that little bastard Mo Xie massacred a continent of my human race. Today, I will massacre the entire Ghost Hua continent and bury the millions of innocent souls of my race." After speaking, without waiting for the Ghost Hua sect master to reply, Shao Chen waved his hand. Qin Yu, Emperor Qing, Bai Yi and the others all attacked the formation with all their strength. The Ghost Hua sect was not strong to begin with, so the sect-protecting formation was naturally not outstanding. It was not even a saint-level formation, so it naturally could not stop Shao Chun and the others. In just half a day, the Ghost Hua sect's sect-protecting formation was broken. Seeing that the formation was being destroyed, the Ghost Hua sect master's face was filled with fear. Without thinking, he immediately begged for mercy. Holy Son Shao Chun, the massacre of the human race 2 days ago had nothing to do with us. That was the Night Ghost Pavilion's doing. We are all innocent. Innocent? Haha, then what about the millions of innocent souls of the human race? Aren't they innocent? Since your ghost race has done this, don't blame me for returning the favor. With a thought, the dustless sword appeared in Shao Chen's hand. With a slash, the Saint Level 9 sifting sword chi was unleashed. As the sword slashed through the air, the Ghost Hua sect disciples below were instantly killed. Since Shao Chun had made his move, Chen Yu and the others naturally followed suit. The 2 sacred palace saint sovereigns immediately locked onto the Ghost Hua sect master. As the number 1 sect of the Ghost Hua continent, the Ghost Hua sect was instantly reduced to a living hell. Blood splattered everywhere as miserable screams rang out endlessly. Besieged by the 2 sacred palace saint sovereigns, the Ghost Hua sect master resisted with all his might. However, in the end, he was still no match for them. 2 hours later, the Ghost Hua sect master was killed. However, before he died, the Ghost Hua sect master used the last of his strength to shout out in anger. Shao Chun, Sacred Palace, the Night Ghost Pavilion will not let you off for committing such an inhumane act. Holy Sun Mo Xie will not let you off either. One day, my ghost race will slaughter all the humans in the North Star world and make the human race extinct in the North Star world. Humph, as long as I, Shao Chun, am around, nothing will happen to the humans in the North Star world. Shao Chun coldly snorted when he heard the Ghost Hua sect master's words. With a slash of his sword, the sharp edge of the sword directly tore the Ghost Hua sect master's corpse into pieces. Begging for collection, begging for monthly votes, begging for recommendations. End of chapter. Chapter 1134. With the death of the sect leader of the Ghost Flower sect, the remaining people were naturally no match for Shao Chun and the others. Under the attack of the 2 saints, the Ghost Hua sect only lasted for a few hours before being razed to the ground. A sect without a saint overseeing it naturally couldn't withstand the attack of 2 saints. Moreover, in addition to the 2 saints, there was also Shao Chun and the other 4 chosen, as well as Qin Shuru and the other 2 girls. They didn't hold back in the slightest. Not a single person from the Ghost Hua sect was spared. The Ghost Hua sect that had dominated the Ghost Hua continent for over 1,000 years was destroyed in a single day just like that. Everyone, from the sect master to the ordinary disciples, was killed. Following the destruction of the Ghost Hua sect, the Ghost Hua continent was littered with corpses. The remaining Sacred Palace experts turned the cities on the Ghost Hua continent into ghost cities and the land into a land of death, wherever they passed. The Ghost Hua continent was littered with corpses and miserable scenes could be seen everywhere. Qin Shuru Tianyu and the other 2 girls didn't look too good when they saw the land. Even Shao Chun didn't look too good. After all, these were the lives of millions of people. Anyone wouldn't feel good if they were killed just like that. One had to know that Shao Chun and the others weren't homicidal maniacs. Shao Chun had his reasons for doing this. Mo Xie had massacred an entire continent of humans. If the Sacred Palace didn't do anything, such things would definitely continue to happen in the future. Moreover, the distribution of forces among the various races in the North Star boundary could be said to be intricate and complicated. There were many continents where hundreds of races coexisted. As such, it was impossible for the Sacred Palace to protect the humans in the North Star boundary. They couldn't possibly arrange for experts to guard every continent, right? If that was the case, they could only be destroyed one by one. Therefore, Shao Chen definitely wouldn't do such a stupid thing. Since they were unable to provide strict protection, they could only do the opposite. Didn't Mo slaughter the human race of an entire continent? Then Shao Chen would slaughter the ghost race of an entire continent and use this as a pretext to send a message to the other quasi-sage sects in the North Star realm. The 7 quasi-saint sects could wage war against each other, but it was best not to target the ordinary people. Otherwise, if the ghost race could kill the human race could also slaughter the ghost race. In any case, everyone was on par with each other. This way, if Mo wanted to slaughter the human race in the future, he would have to carefully consider whether his ghost race had enough people to fill the void. This was one of the most important reasons why Shao Chen had massacred the Huagui continent. Once news of this spread, no matter who it was, they would have to think twice before attacking the human race in the future. Shao Chen's group quickly left the Huagui continent, leaving behind a blood-soaked Huagui continent. At the same time, Shao Chen also sent a message back to the sacred palace. He wanted Shao Xing and the others to publicly announce that the Huagui continent was the sacred palace's doing. His goal was very simple: to take revenge for the Night Ghost Pavilion and Mo Xie's previous actions. The news quickly reached the sacred palace and Shao Xing's group of 4. At this moment, Shao Xing, Binglian, Mengjie, Randeng and the other patriarchs of the sacred palace were gathered together in Shao Xing's cave dwelling. Shao Xing told the 3 of them about the Huagui continent and explained Shao Chen's intentions. Binglian was the first to express her support after hearing Shao Xing's words. "I think Chen Er's method is very good. This will make others wary. Otherwise, if everyone wants to massacre the human race in the future, what will the human race become? A duck on the chopping block?" Shao Chen's method was very cruel. This was without a doubt, but as Binglian had said, it was a very good method. Using killing to stop killing would at least intimidate the world in the shortest amount of time. Mengjie and Randeng nodded in agreement after hearing Binglian's words. They both felt that Shao Chen's method was good. Shao Xing smiled when he saw the 3 patriarchs nod in agreement. "In that case, let's announce to the public as soon as possible that the sacred palace is behind the incident on the Huagui continent. Our goal is revenge." The 4 patriarchs were all old monsters who had lived for countless years. Although they had never massacred an entire continent, they weren't surprised. Moreover, Shao Chen had killed the ghost race, so it wasn't a big deal. Moreover, the ghost race had also massacred millions of humans before this. The 4 patriarchs made their decision. The next day, the sacred palace announced to the public that the incident on the Huagui continent was the sacred palace's doing and that they had massacred millions of ghost race people in revenge for Mo Xie and the Night Ghost Pavilion's actions. In the end, the sacred palace unyieldingly stated that if any race dared to massacre the human race at will in the future, no matter who it was, the sacred palace would definitely take revenge. If they killed 10,000 people, the sacred palace would kill 20,000 of them. The sacred palace's announcement was very domineering. As the announcement quickly spread, the North Star boundary was instantly shaken. Needless to say, the human race didn't panic in the slightest in the face of the sacred palace's announcement. On the contrary, they were very excited. After all, the sacred palace's action was to protect the entire human race in the North Star boundary. Moreover, the human race had been in decline for many years. How could the human race not be overjoyed now that such a powerful quasi-saint sect had appeared in the human race? From the changes in the eyes of the surrounding cultivators, the human race in the North Star boundary could already feel the fear they felt towards the human race. In the North Star boundary, the human race used to be the weakest. Powerful races like the Ghost race and the Devil race looked down on the human race, but now, with the Sacred Palace's strength, these races no longer dared to bully the human race. Of course, there were pros and cons as well. With the emergence of this incident, the human race and ghost race could be said to be like fire and water. The ghost race, who were originally complacent because Emosia had slaughtered millions of humans, never thought that the human race would slaughter millions of ghost ancestors with a flip of the hand. The number of ghost ancestors was even more than the number of humans Emosia had slaughtered. Moreover, the one who did this was the current first chosen of the human race, Shaochen, who had the same status as Emosia. This was like a soldier against a soldier, a general against a general. It was obvious that the ghost race was taking revenge on Emosia. The human race was excited and proud, while the ghost race was filled with grief and indignation. But no matter what, the entire North Star boundary was shaken because of this incident. At the same time, the situation in the North Star boundary also turned from tense to chaotic because of this. On many continents, the human race and ghost race had already begun to fight, and both sides were almost irreconcilable. From the saint sects to the ordinary small clans, the human race and ghost race were already irreconcilable. As a result, the clouds of war in the sky above the North Star boundary were densely packed. Begging for collection, begging for monthly votes, begging for recommendations. End of chapter. You're tuning in to the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.